The road to the temple was littered with large statues, and more young guys who came to an important ceremony became more and more. In this world, all children, when they are 12 years old, come to the temple to receive their special gift. The main priestess, full of grandeur and deep respect, held the ceremony itself. She gave the children the scrolls who became a symbol of the future path for them. Most often, children received combat abilities. Because from the very beginning, God himself gave people power so that they could protect themselves from demons. Now the monsters were no longer so dangerous, and more children received special gifts that helped develop their civilization. Ravel sincerely believed that he would receive a truly valuable gift. Ravella always pulled knowledge, and his girlfriend Anna was fond of his curiosity, considering the boy a great reason. Finally, his turn came to the priestess. Anna was the first to take one of the rare gifts, and that struck everyone around. Although it was gentle and fragile, in fact, in her heart, a real courage lived. One of the nuns came to Anna and invited her to go with her to her back room to talk alone. The turn to Ravel came. Instead of getting some impressive power, he received an unusual gift: hard work. He did not even hear about such talent before. All the children laughed fun, and Savel was lost because he did not know how to use this unusual gift. One guy by the name of Carlo began to mock Ravel, insulting him and calling the illness with the worst talent. Carlo received the talent of a real swordmaster and immediately promised himself to become a legendary warrior. He called himself the Chosen Gods and dreamed of becoming a true knight, often boasting of his advantage to Ravel. When the ceremony ended, Ravel, along with Anna, went back to the village. On the way, the guy did not resist and asked what they were talking about in the room with the priestess. However, the girl pretended not to notice the question. When they got home, they decided to eat something delicious together. Ravel asked his mother to allow him to cook something in the kitchen, and she gladly agreed. Savel immediately took up the preparation of sweet pancakes. They looked very tasty, but in fact they were even better in taste. Anna was delighted with the treat, but suddenly the girl became sad. She sincerely told her best friend that she would soon have to leave this place, because after she received the gift, everything around became different. Ravel suddenly realized that Anna would be taken to the Heroes Academy, the most famous educational institution in all Tyria. It is there that young talents develop and improve their abilities. The academy prepares real defenders of the kingdom, so temple guards always come to the ceremony. They carefully observe how gifted and evaluate each manifestation of strength. They should ensure that children with unique abilities such as Anna could not escape. It was very upset by Ravella, and he decided to ask Anna what she really wanted. Anna sighed. With such a strong and unbreakable gift, she only had to put up with her way. There was no other choice. She said that such a gift is a reason for pride, not a reason to invent nonsense. But when the excitement took the top, the girl suddenly jumped and left the room silently. Ravella's father was surprised by Anna's actions. But when he heard that she possesses the power of the Dragon Knight, everything came into place. This girl will be able to become the hero of the king. However, he was even more surprised when he saw his son's talent. Unlike him, his mother always said that it is the hard work that best describes Ravel. Even simple pancakes became a real miracle. The guy really tried very hard to impress Anna, so his pancakes were particularly soft and delicious. Sitting at the table, he remembered his mother's words and thought about them. Mom said that talents are something mysterious. She once thought that her bake was worth little. But everything changed when she opened her bakery in the big city and achieved true success. The father said that he would now come home later, because soon there will be a battle in front of God, in which children with their combat abilities will participate. Even the supreme priest is going to come to this performance. Therefore the chief chef ordered, everything should be perfect, even the smallest little things. It is enough conversation. It's time to take place. Snail was very nervous when he heard all these stories, and his parents could not understand what was happening to their son. In fact, the boy was worried about his unknown gift, which even the priests knew nothing. He firmly decided to show everyone that it was much larger. Therefore, he decided to join the Heroes Academy to stay with Anna, no matter how difficult it was. In fact, Ravel had very little time to battle with God, and he did not know how to show himself on the best side. In his thoughts, his mother's words were spinning that real talents sometimes remain a mystery. He quickly realized that hard work was not the force with which he would like to overcome difficulties. Therefore, you need to understand what it is for a strange ability and how it works. Ravel always sought to receive a special gift, wisdom, or great power that could not be found among ordinary people. Such abilities were given only to those who passed through cruel battles or difficult trials. The gift of wisdom reveals a lot of knowledge to a person, but does not give access to what is hidden. Even when you know everything, it does not guarantee that you will be most important. In the end, it was only knowledge that easily swayed, but it was much more difficult to use in practice. Therefore, Ravel no longer wanted to get this gift so much. The main thing now is to find out how his hard work works. If other abilities developed by themselves, then it required real efforts and gave no additional advantages. It was unfortunate that all efforts remained without any reward. Ravel wondered what people have achieved with this gift in the past. But despite it, he continued to believe and did not lose hope. Human talents are very similar to magic. It seems that they appear themselves if a person is wise. However, it is much more difficult to get them than it seems. Ravel realized that he was lacking in magic, and therefore he could not fully possess it. However, he learned that if you imagine the magical power inside yourself and then try to release it, you could enhance your capabilities. He barely dared to try. The terrible pain pierced him so much that it seemed the mind was about to break. The pain was so severe that even an adult could not carry it. It became clear, if you do not have a magical gift, it is almost impossible to use magic. Sable clenched his teeth and decided not to give up. He was ready to go to the end to strengthen his magical power, let him not cost him. He constantly brought himself to exhaustion, every time recovering magical forces, and did not even notice how time was flying. This activity became a real test, almost deadly. In the end, he no longer left for the magic. But his efforts were not in vain. Ravel got a new skill, super recovery of magic energy. It was very encouraged by him, because he did not expect such success. Thanks to the new skill, magic has begun to recover much faster. In order to get this ability, it was necessary to spend all the energy completely in a row and let it recover. Earlier, Ravel gained different skills due to his wisdom, but he has not yet encountered. He now wondered how he could become even stronger. The muscle strength skill gave a short-term increase in strength and endurance. In order to get this ability, it was necessary to fully consume your magical energy and exercise before exhaustion. It turned out that everyone has their own conditions to gain skills. Therefore, everyone has to find their own path of development. Ravel thought and realized that true hard work was to constantly accumulate power, which eventually becomes his new ability. With this awareness, he felt that he was now able to defeat anyone. The next day, the guy completely plunged into training and was able to master 3 new abilities: muscle strengthening, monitoring magic, and strengthening the body. In just one day, his life has changed radically. Having restored the strength, Ravel wanted to again experience his new skills and achievements, because it was his greatest victory in recent times. To become a stronger body, it was necessary to combine physical force with magical energy. And when you add wisdom to this, it was possible to reveal the secrets of other powerful abilities. Ravel became interested in magic, because she seemed universal power. Therefore, he began to look for magical abilities. The father noticed that the son was behaving differently, and asked what had happened. Ravel did not expect such a frank conversation at all, so he almost rested his drink. But at that moment, it came to him. If he learns to use his skills well, he will be able to truly interest the supreme priest. While his dad was wiped after his shower, Ravel had already decided for himself. He will do everything possible to be next to Anna and join the Heroes' Academy. In the meantime, Carlo was confident in how skillfully possessed the sword. He already overcome several opponents in the tournament. The supreme priest noticed that Anna was not good. She complained of a bad state of health and could not show the power of the Dragon Knight, and Carlo constantly demanded new rivals. At that moment, Ravel appeared and reported that he wanted to demonstrate his combat skills. Carlo was happy because he did not respect Ravel, so he immediately began to offend him. One of the priests remembered that only those who are endowed with combat ability can fight before God. However, the priestess asked not to stop the duel. Carlo was preparing to fight because he always felt hatred of Ravel. However, this time the guy no longer looked weak. Now he could stand up for himself. Carlo did not wait for the order. He rushed forward, attracting an opponent with a powerful storm of frantic blows. Ravel was able to withstand the first attack, but already felt that this battle would be extremely difficult. Carlo was very strong, and anyone in his place would have fallen for a long time. But Ravel did not give up, confidently held a blow and defended himself from such powerful attacks capable of breaking anyone. Attacks poured lightly. Ravel clearly felt how stronger Carlo. Even when he reinforced his body, his blows could still not compare with Carlo's power. Carlo was angry and forced Ravel to repel. He said that even if you do not have a talent, you still have to fight, otherwise it is not a fight, but just a performance. The audience began to shout it loudly, inciting Carlo to cope with this failure as soon as possible. Ravel's father decided to support his son and began to move slowly, as if specifically substantiated for blows. He wanted a sage to train aptness. Ravel decided to apply his imitation skill. In order for it to work, you need to perfectly understand the movements of the enemy, using improved vision. Part of magic is spent when copying. After preparation, he was able to accurately reproduce the movements of the best warrior. It was this skill that he decided to use during the battle. Ravel, trained in his father's technique, was incredibly overcome by Carlo. No one was able to understand how he succeeded, but in the hall, everyone was delighted. After the victory, Ravel asked him to be accepted to the Academy of Heroes, because now he even overcome the master. But the priest said it was impossible. The academy is considered a sacred place dedicated to the gods, and only special, worthy people can get there. The refusal was stunned by Ravel. He apologized for his perseverance, said nothing more, and went silently. The priest added quietly, "The rules here." But I thought, these rules are not always honest. When you look at this guy, you know, he is a real mystery, which apparently did not even solve the gods. Ravel immediately went to Anna, but heard she closed in her room and went to the academy the next day. However, the guy decided not to stop. He asked his aunt to call Anna. Anna was sincerely surprised and rejoiced when she found out that Ravel had won Carlo, though he had no combat gift. She frankly confessed that she was scared of fighting. She does not want to hurt anyone at all. The girl confessed that above all she wanted to stay in her native village and live quietly near the Ravel. In response, the guy told her about two teams that exist at the Heroes Academy. Younger students are distinguished by their best talents, and in the upper classes are taught real special personalities who have already proven their uniqueness. If Anna considers Ravel a steep, it means that he is already embarrassed. Ravel promised. In 3 years he will become strong to protect Anna on his own and join the Academy of Heroes. If Anna cannot live quietly, she will not have time for herself. And Ravel still wants to stay close, even if it causes some difficulties. He remembered how she often cried as a child, but every time he found himself to support her. Each time, her mood became better when he treated her with his perfect pancakes. The girl was embarrassed. Her cheeks were covered with a blush. She quickly wiped tears and quietly confessed that she liked Ravel very much. She felt it so much for the first time. Ravel was already going to say something, but Anna put her hand to his mouth and asked to wait. Let him give an answer in 3 years when he was already in the academy. In the meantime, she promised to become better. Their friendship has grown from year to year. Although others considered Ravel an ordinary child, Anna always believed that he was special. She always sought to play with him, and Ravel had long wore her gentle smile in her heart. And so, when everything began to change, the girl decided to give him her promise. As in their childhood, they again intertwined their fingers and promised each other something important. Ravel realized that even if she is not so perfect, he is ready to do everything to see her smile. It will surely become stronger so that Anna should never be fighting or suffering. All he does, all his perseverance is just for her. Aiden, Ravel's father, worked as a fencing teacher at school. He always remained a mystery. He appeared only for a short time, silently said a few words, and immediately disappeared. Teachers did not get angry with his indifference, because they understood that Aiden has an incredible force that no one will know about. On gray, rainy morning, Anna gathered and went to the Academy of Heroes. All her native land was about to accompany a talented girl, wishing her only the best. Only Saville did not appear. He could not watch how she was going. The rain washed the boy's face, mixing with tears, heavy, like gold. He told his father that he did not want to spend time goodbye. Aiden understood him. His son really wanted to be at the academy as soon as possible. Saville was still quite small, so his father could not help but be surprised by such a strong desire to join the son through a girl. But only thinking about her, Ravel is unlikely to achieve something. Aiden said one talent was not enough. Even if Ravel surprises the priest again, he will still be expelled from the academy. Ravel did not expect his father to guess his plan so quickly. In fact, he specifically copied the technique of owning a sword to take advantage of the moment. But Aiden explained that you will not get true power without difficult trials. Therefore, his father drove his son to the dark room. Everything should be quite different here than in fencing classes. Ravel was surprised. His father did not even take a bamboo sword with him, but Aiden decided otherwise. He lit a bright magical flame. It was a real demonstration of strength. Aiden promised that he would teach him true magic that would help you become even stronger. The flame of the demon rushed by itself, without a visible source. My father strictly warned me not to be distracted and fully focus on meditation. With this practice, you can get a demon. Ravella was captured by his father's skills, and he plunged his head into his studies. Aiden said that there is another world in which demons live. However, people can also achieve such strength if they develop their own physical abilities. Even if you have the gift of wisdom, information about the demonstration is still inaccessible. This information is classified. Ravel asked why his father still didn't say anything. Aiden has been seriously explained that this force is extremely dangerous. It can erase entire peoples from the face of the earth. It is because of this that it cannot be allowed. Demonal fire absorbs air energy and takes away the vitality of everything around. Even the strongest abilities will weaken next to it. This flame only burns in half, but removes all hidden magic from the body, causing severe pain and complete exhaustion. Scientists who studied demons often called them differently. But in ancient legends, these creatures have always remained creatures from hell that suited the souls simply for their own entertainment. To become stronger than the demons, you must first overcome your own hell inside and stand to the end. Snail could not tolerate anymore. He fell to the floor, twisting from severe pain. But Aiden only said quietly that this was just the beginning. He was ahead of him a real test. The guy gasped, as if he were falling underwater. Super, renewal did not save. The magic was disappeared, then it appeared again, every time bringing new waves of pain. The fear of Ravella was shining, and he stopped feeling time, tolerance of terrible torment. My father asked him, "Do you really want to become strong? The victory over the Academy's swordsman is not the end. If Ravel seeks to protect the Dragon Knight, he will have to show all his true forces." Aiden looked at his son and noticed that he had become different. Now Ravel has a determination. He was ready to meet a new life and gain new knowledge. But even with all his success, Saville felt very bad. The father said that he should not try to become perfect in a moment. He suggested pausing and walking in the open air a little. But Ravel refused to stop. He wanted to continue to be tested, even if the body had no strength. The guy tried to focus and mentally sought the right solution. If he had a little more wisdom, he might have realized how to master demonic power. Wisdom helps to find the information you need when you look for it. Ravel was very impressed with the tranquility of his father, who stood by the campfire, as if it were a common thing to him. The guy barely stood on his feet. The heat of the flame almost deprived his consciousness. Everything sounded too loudly, and the rain that drummed on the roof made it all more unbearable. He remembered how he walked with Anna in the rain. Then it became sad because the rain prevented the play with a paper plane, and they only hid together under a big canopy. Then Ravel made a beautiful paper plane and invited Anna to play him at home. But Anna suddenly unfolded the airplane, and it surprised the boy that he had froze with surprise. The girl quickly folded a new airplane and said that when something is changing, we need to look for a new way. She then suggested that instead of a plane to let the paper ship on the stream. That day was like many others, filled with joy, because there was a girlfriend nearby. We just played together, forgetting all the worries. But now Ravel began to suffocate. To breathe again, he tried to use magic, just as he did before a duel with God. At that moment, he was able to manage magical energy, but was so passionate about trying to follow others that he forgot about it. Now he mentioned that this skill helps energy to move easily, makes it stronger, and spends less magic. In order to activate this ability, you must first learn how to fully control magic. When it succeeds, the body begins to work perfectly. Energy is constantly renewed. It's just a few minutes, and Saville finally did it. He has completely taken control of all processes in his body and acquired a vital skill. But this was not enough. It was increasingly difficult to meditate, but he understood that the most important thing in this workout is to learn how to properly manage circulation. Breathing was just a minor consequence. Even when the consciousness almost left it, it made sense for the purpose. Although he was painful and very much wanted to relax, the guy gathered all his forces and sat down in front of a demon of fire again. This time his breath became equal and calm. The father looked carefully at everything that was happening. When he decided to complete the workout, he suddenly cut his hand. The lightning sword cut a magical fire. the meditation was over. But it was only the first step towards new trials. Now Ravel was forced to evade his father's blows, teaching full and using all his agility. After all, pain, screams, and suffering are the essence of demonic strength. But if you imagine yourself a real demon, it remains only to laugh and enjoy your strength. Aiden constantly forced his son to fight for hours. But Ravel stopped feeling fatigue, as if something inside him had changed. At dawn, when the hut was already lying in ruins, Ravel finally mastered the demonstration skill. In gratitude, his father gave him his sword. He suggested going to wild places to gain real combat experience, because only in real fights can you become stronger. Ravel apologized to his mother for so unexpectedly had to go. She treated it with understanding and helped him collect things. After a warm farewell, Savel was ready to go on the road. I thanked my parents for everything they did for me and promised that I would definitely come back. My mother was very worried because I had an unusual gift, but still believed in me. My father remembered how he had not visited the temple for a long time before the great battle to prepare before God. Their village was small, but the temple was surprisingly great. Similar temples stood in different corners of the world. It was in these places that their talents were discovered by people. What the gift they will receive depend on their whole life. Aiden shared how he traveled different countries and saw people who wanted to become better, even if they lacked talent. Previously, he just mocked such attempts, but now he looked at his views, because even his son was so quickly received the power of the demon. The guy may have unlimited potential. When his mother burst into tears, he tried to reassure her. From now on, their son Savel will discover new people and discover new knowledge horizons. It may be the strongest in the world one day. Therefore, parents should trust him and believe in his future. The deserted road from any settlements went by a vestige. She was sitting with panic. A huge and ferocious monster chased after them. It seemed that the death was already close, but fortunately near her was a brave Ravel. Without thought, he grabbed his sword and strongly rushed into battle. Instant blow, and the head of the monster fell to the ground. This is the kind of battle technique once described by her father. A little later, in Taverna, the girl heard the same story, and could not believe for a long time that it was a simple accident, because Ravel seemed too mysterious. She was amazed at his incredible force and courage. He had overcome Orca with only one blow. She wanted to know more about him, but Ravel was in a hurry and did not want to stay on conversation. The girl noticed that his clothes were all contaminated and covered with blood, but the guy did not see it. He was the same even on a sharp smell. Laura, who was a member of the Traders Guild, offered him to try on new clothes. It turned out to be the best things from her store. Then she gathered the trophies and said that the horns of the orca are very valuable. They can be expensive to sell and buy good armor. However, Ravel could not sell them on their own because only members of the guild had such a right. Laura promised to help him in this gratitude for his help. Ravel did not want to deal with trade issues, so he decided to say goodbye. But the girl suggested bringing him to the city of Gostin. The guy decided that while he would go in a carriage, would be able to rest and learn new spells with the help of wisdom, so he agreed. The journey through the mountains brought them to a large plain, in the middle of which was the city of Lipsil. This city was much bigger and more crowded than Ravel imagined. This village was a refuge for travelers and merchants. On the way to the Labyrinth City, the guy was going to visit many more similar places. People here were friendly and noisy. In local taverns, they readily told each other news and fresh rumors, enjoying a mug of strong beer. Everyone was passionate about how the guy defeated the giant orca alone, and asked him to tell in detail how everything happened. Ravel explained that in order to become so strong, you must first completely exhaust all your magical power. It is a complex process that takes a lot of time and effort. People listened with interest to his story about exercise, muscle strengthening, and how he squeezed hundreds of times daily. At first, it seems difficult, but gradually workouts become a habit. Ravel, with a smile, said that it was just a joke, and he received his real training at his father's martial arts school. However, the listeners continued to listen carefully and enthusiastically. Suddenly, the tavern door opened wide, and a stranger ran into the hall. His gaze immediately fell on the one who defeated the orca, and he began to ask about it with interest. Everyone was instantly shown to the Ravella. The bald man ran to him and began to be pleased with the salvation. Dangerous bandits were found in the caves near the caves. They robbed the town and attacked suppliers, which is why the city itself was on the verge of decline. The man was frightened and began to beg for salvation, because if the city disappears, everything that exists next to him would die. But Ravel refused, though he was asked. He was in a hurry and did not want to get into the others' affairs of the unknown city. He suggested that hires who could cope with bandits. But it turned out that all the warriors had already died, and the mayor of the city put high hopes on the hero who defeated the Orca Shalom. Laura suddenly intervened in the conversation. She promised Ravel to give a gold coin as a reward, and then provide him with a quick carriage that would take him to where he needed after the task. For 1 gold coin it was possible to live quietly for a whole month. Having a fast horse and a carriage would significantly reduce the road, but the guy could not understand why they were asking for so much money. This city was a real paradise for merchants. 1 coin is worth nothing if you think about how much you can lose due to decline and failure. Finally, Ravel realized why Lori needed all this, and decided to help her. He understood that such help was not worth the risks you had to go, but agreed. Due to his wisdom skills, he learned that the bandits were usually not attacked, but went into groups and ambushed. They rarely acted openly because they had no great power. These people had little abilities, and society turned away from them, so many of them became a criminal. Ravel partially understood them because he passed through the similar. Ravel did not focus on the causes of the bandits. They always act unexpectedly, so he decided to take advantage of their tactics. Under the cover of the night, secretly neutralize them one by one. Ravel did not want to shed blood, so he decided to do without a sword. The bandits did not expect an attack at night, and the first of them immediately felt the full force of Ravel. He tried to defend himself, but Ravel cleverly evaded and used the strengthening of his body for the first time. He hit him exactly, and was extremely strong. The powerful bandit suddenly fell to the ground, and everyone realized, in fact, he was not as scary as he tried to show himself. Moving further into the darkness of the cave, Ravel cleverly won the enemies one by one. With each victory, his confidence became only stronger. All this reminded him of those training, which his father often mentioned. As soon as he almost finished the massacre with the enemies, he was unexpectedly thrown out of the darkness. It was a leader, much stronger than all others. The angry giant bandit shouted that the guy had destroyed the whole gang and destroyed all their ideas. Ravel explained that he did not kill anyone, but simply stunned the enemy. Hearing this, the leader was surprised and said that if Saville would continue to restrain himself, he would not survive. The leader struck so much that Ravel was forced to jump sideways, but the enemy did not stop and continued to step. His sword seemed incredibly large, and his muscles in his eyes increased several times. He seemed to be superhuman. He said that he possesses the gift of best single, which is equal to the skills of knights from the royal guard. It surprised Ravella. If you have such a talent, why engage in crimes? But the leader just smiled. He trained a lot, but over time he was tired. He began to find entertainment in theft and murder. It seemed more interesting to him. Ravel called him a real scum, but the bandit only laughed in response and threatened that he would crush the bold guy. The crazy attack broke out. Powerful blows went one by one. No one had the strength to resist such rage, but Ravel remained unharmed. He even leaned forward and joked, calling his enemy's style a premier. The guy who headed the auditors easily avoided all the attacks of enemies. He struck faster and more accurately than even Carlo. It felt as the power of his body and the magical energy of Ravel became much stronger. This showed that all his efforts were not in vain. Previously, they mocked him, considering it weak, but now he surpassed himself and surprised everyone. Finally, the guy decided to act. He quickly went into a counterattack, and several powerful blows to the face made the enemy get lost. The leader jumped and fell to the ground. Ravel could not even believe that the victory came so easily and quickly. He suggested that the enemy get up and continue the fight. Suddenly, Laura appeared nearby and asked why he needed it. Ravel praised the merchant because he was able to overcome the whole gang of robbers. The guy did not expect her to see here and looked at the girl in surprise. But she just smiled in response. She knew that these bandits have been terrorizing local merchants for a long time and taking away the most expensive. Now, Ravel finally realized what she really sought. Her purpose was to get to the cave and seize the treasures hidden there. Her plan was very successful. She didn't even expect everything to be so well. Now all merchants felt gratitude for her. The girl carefully sorted the trophies, looking for something really valuable, and within a few minutes found what she needed. She gladly showed Ravella a small wooden cage, inside which was a strange creature, similar to a tiny dragon. All robbers were captured and committed to the city guard. Ravel received a gold coin and a horse with a horse as a reward, and Laura found something why she went into this adventure. But suddenly the dragon swallowed a very rare ingredient, and the girl was immediately worried. Ravel could not understand why it became such a big problem. He noted that the child did not understand anything, but Laura assured that this ingredient is very rare and is of great importance for the guild. She told that she had to return it immediately after the task was completed. In this case, she would be recognized as a heroine. But this opportunity was lost. The ingredient could be prepared a rare royal dish, and the new one would appear no earlier than 100 years. Ravel really wanted to find a way out of the situation with the right ingredient, so he suggested just to buy it. However, it turned out that this ingredient costs at least 5 platinum coins, and each of them is equal to a whole 100 gold. The guy could not believe his ears. To get such a large sum, he would need to destroy at least 500 bandit groups. But so many gangs in the whole country simply do not exist. Laura thought for a moment, and then decided to find another way out. Suddenly, she suggested paying to the sly smile otherwise. Not with money, but her own body. Seeing as a surprised Savile, she quickly explained, "She is about work. She wants to hire him as a guardian to the city of Vima." It was a large city known for its guilds and numerous shops. The most important thing, it was in the path of Ravel, so the accompaniment did not affect his journey. But the young man stressed that such work should be paid for 5 platinum coins. Laura just smiled in response, because in her guild there are many influential and very rich traders. Recently, monsters have become much more aggressive. This has not happened for many years. Food spoils quickly and people are afraid to carry goods. However, as she said, now the perfect time has come. Everything is damaged can be purchased almost in vain, and then it is profitable to resell in the city of Waltia, where prices have grown very much. Ravel was not surprised. This girl has always been beneficial even in the worst situations. He thoughtfully thought that such moments open up opportunities for significant investments. The guy thought a little and then agreed. Laura asked once again whether he could trust his life, and Ravel promised to do everything to protect her. In addition, it was the fight against strong monsters that helped him become stronger. This is what he wanted. They shook each other's hands, confirming their agreement. But here Laura reminded, since Savile is not a merchant, he should definitely conclude a contract of subjugation. Failure to do so will take away the little dragon because it will be considered an unregistered monster. He was surprised why she hadn't told it before. But Laura only laughed and said, "Forgot." In fact, without a contract, they would not be able to get to the city. Ravel asked the dragon to ask if he was ready to conclude a contract. The little dragon was gladly nodded, and the thick satellite only murmured that all those present behave like crazy. The skill of submission can only be obtained when you have made a connection with your monster at will. In addition, it is possible to acquire this ability only if there is already such talent in the city system. Ravel mentioned that the old sage's records described the rules that could master this skill. However, he was not sure whether these conditions were still the same. Ravel wondered, maybe something has changed during this time. The instructions say that the contract requires telepathy. If there is no such skill, nothing will work. To use telepathy, you need to consciously transfer your magical energy to your partner. To do this, be able to control the movement of magic in the body. Snail thought. Apparently, those who have the strength of demons in the veins can do this even without the usual conditions. Having realized the whole situation, he gathered with his forces, though he doubted his own capabilities. And it was at this moment that Laura exclaimed, "The monsters are approaching." This feeling again. The world seemed completely incomplete. Ravel remembered the attack of the bandits and could not understand why she decided to go exactly this road. Yes, he really promised a generous reward. But despite this, Laura showed a great skill in driving, and a prudent horse helped them to break away from the monsters. When they managed to escape, they stopped in the woods to relax. There was only one day of the road to Vema, so it was necessary to hurry to conclude a contract. Laura suggested that he will be near her in the afternoon, and at night he will be able to train for a contract. She did not understand why these strange rituals, but Ravel asked to treat it seriously. The girl asked if she realized that the true goal of the boy was the city of Flapar. She also wondered why he was so persistently defending this little dragon. Laura hurried and did not have time to ask the mayor why this dragon was so important. Then Ravel told her that he promised to protect this creature, and now had to fulfill this promise. If you need to sign a contract, it will agree. After that, the guy asked Laura, which she had the most important goal. The girl did not say a single word, only fascinatedly watched as Ravel ignited flames with magic. She could not believe that he actually had such a force. Meanwhile, Ravel calmly asked that they would eat for dinner, because it was their last meal before they reached the cities. However, Laura couldn't think more about food. She was extremely surprised. She has never happened to her who at the same time owns magic and beats well without weapons. Only the selected are able to awaken such abilities. But the sage remained modest. For him, the creation of fire was the usual but necessary skill. He just trained a lot until he mastered it. It struck the girl even more. Ravel wondered if he did not seem to the girl that he was mocking her. But Laura assured. She believed in his great potential and special talents. The guy mentioned Anna, the strongest among all the fellows, which received an unusual and very rare gift. She was so strong that she could without help defeat 100 enemies at once. When Anna appeared at the Heroes Academy, she impressed all her capabilities. Ravel said that he once promised to become stronger than her and always defend her. So now he wants to train even more often to become even stronger. Laura was a little upset when she was a jealous feeling, and she asked if Anna was Ravela. However, he immediately changed the topic and began to conclude a contract with the dragon. He sought to connect and tried to combine his magic with the power of the dragon. However, this was not so easy. Their magical waves were different, and the merger had to adjust them to one frequency. To control magic, you must first direct it into a narrow stream and then gradually expand. This is the main principle of a magical flow that can combine different creatures. Ravel gathered all his attention and carefully mixed magical force with the dragon. He understood that no mistake could be made here. Suddenly, the dragon suddenly roared, knocking Ravel out of his thoughts. Then the guy asked the dragon not to distract him, because to create a telepathic connection requires full focus. Finally, the efforts were brought. In a few minutes, the energy around it calmed down and became equal. It was at this point that Ravel realized that the dragon was not just screaming. He tried to warn him. The monster was quietly sneaking behind. But Ravel managed to notice the danger. He quickly jumped and lightly struck. He was afraid of fear, but he could not stop. He was a huge tree monster. Ravel was already going to burn the monster, but the dragon stopped in time. From the depth of the tree he heard the cries of a girl. The dragon asked him to be released, and Savel quickly cut his rope. The little one immediately rushed to a tree, from which sharp, dangerous shoots sticking out of the branch. He was strongly looking for Laura, and Ravel proudly noticed that a new friend quickly finds a place where the sound came from. Laura was trapped among the branches and could not move at all. Ravel immediately rushed to her, cutting the thick branches with her heavy sword. The monster could not stand the blow. His body from the tree split into piles, and sharp fragments and branches flew all the way. Laura sincerely thanked the Ravel for saving her. However, the guy noted that all this became possible due to the little dragon, because he was the first to find it. The girl gently spun her hand on the baby's head and said thank you from all over her heart. In response, he was quietly shaking like a small, happy kitten. In the end, Ravel graduated from the rite and concluded an agreement through telepathy. Now the dragon has become his official companion. The guy called him Kaya, and the baby's name really liked it. They could move on. Ravel still felt guilty because he did not have time to notice how Laura had disappeared and got into trouble. After that, he promised himself to always be more careful and closely monitor what was happening around. Meanwhile, Laura remembered the prediction. She should meet a person with a hard work talent, which will help her achieve true success. She watched Ravel skillfully possesses a sword, controls fiery magic, and even conquered the dragon. Now she had no doubt. It was he. If the words of God are true, this guy will be the key to her future. True. She did not yet understand how it would happen. At the same moment, the goddess looked at Ravel and warned him. A difficult way was waiting ahead. If he does not give all his strength, Anna will not survive. Ravel wanted to visit Mr. Colt, but heard that he has not been out of his office for a long time and was enthusiastically studying black magic. Having received a new talent, Colt rushed to study everything possible to become stronger. His aura was noticeably stronger every day. In fact, he received the unique gift of the sorcerer, the ability of the sage. Thanks to this skill, it can find out any information and becomes a real living encyclopedia. Meanwhile, friends came to Vamina. It was the largest trading city in all Tyria. Here, every guild had its power and authority, and the state carefully monitored the inheritance of ancient cults. They barely arrived as Laura went to a trading company, and Ravel with Kaya took a map and went to look for a hotel. They could not believe their eyes, so much around them in size. The streets of the city were crowded with humans. The noise around Ravel was nervous. He looked around quickly. He returned to a quiet lane with fewer people. The little dragon Kaya asked if they were getting lost here. The guy moved on without stopping, suddenly saw a group of girls. They were local prostitutes and looked at him with interest, hoping to find a good client. There was a quarter of entertainment, a place where everyone who wanted excitement gathered. In the middle of the noisy crowd, a young guy suddenly appeared, and this immediately attracted the attention of girls who were already used to harsh and rude visitors. Ravel and Kaya immediately felt not in their plate. Every look around the greed and disdain that disturbed them and caused anxiety. The girls were their guards, dangerous bandits. Seeing Ravel, they immediately thought of robbery and to sell the little dragon for a round sum. It seemed that this narrow street belonged only to them. They already painted in the imagination how quickly the boy would get rid of and take away all his property. But Ravel was not going to give up. He struck one of the attackers with all his power, and he immediately fainted. In a close passage, it turned out to be even easier than if they fought in an open place. Other attackers did not intend to retreat. They rushed again and again. However, Ravel skillfully evaded every blow and advised them to leave while they still had the strength to stay on their feet. The bandits only laughed back, and the girls, on the contrary, asked not to start a fight just on the street and begged. The attackers did not stop. They continued to attack. The noise of the fight attracted the attention of people, and soon passers-by began to gather in the narrow street. Ravel cleverly reflected every blow, showing his skill in battle. One of the girls, struck by his skill, wanted to thank him, trying to seduce him. However, the guy politely denied her. At the same moment when the girl stuck to him, another person appeared near him. It was a young witch who noticed a fuss and decided to approach closer. She was stunned by what she saw and immediately said she would stop this violence. Ravel tried to explain that he was attacked himself, but the locals had already started to run. Then the witch waved her hand and created a spell of the wind, which covered the whole street. Ravel realized that such magic in a narrow room can destroy all the surrounding stores. He gathered with thoughts, and remembering his training, was able to restrain the magical flow. He was able to do it, and this was incredibly surprised by the sorceress. She was stunned, because she did not believe that someone is able to cope with a spell without much potion. Ravel used magic to restrain her, but then the elderly man suddenly came out of the girl's back and urged her to stop. Mr. Colt himself, known for his wisdom and knowledge of ancient secrets, stood before her. He seriously warned her, "You should not use such magic in the city." He was amazed by a guy who was able to stop the spell with his bare hands. This showed that there is an incredibly much magical power. Colt asked the guy how his name was, and Ravel immediately introduced himself. The magician said that if it were not for Ravel's intervention, everything could end very badly. The girl pointed to him and said that he provoked it all, but Ravel emphasized again that the first attack was made on him. Mr. Colt did not ask what happened, but simply invited Ravel to his home and promised him a warm reception. For the guy it was a surprise. Ravel reminded that he had little time, but Colt assured that he would be glad to accept guests. So they continued their way together. Laura did not look like this meeting. Ravel immediately noticed that they were already familiar, and apparently something had happened between them. The Colt estate struck them with its luxury, and within minutes they were inside. Ravel realized that he met a special person, not like others. Laura said that Colt Wiminous is a descendant of a rich family who once founded this city. That is why he has so much money. When Colt settled in a large room, he shared the story of a rare book that recently hit him. However, he doubted whether she was real. Savelle asked if Colt had already read it. Colt replied that he was doing it. His confidence caused a smile in Laura, and she advised him to get rid of her dislike, even despite his unique talent. Ravel was surprised why the usual trade allows himself to speak so freely with the owner of the estate. Laura explained that only magic is important for Colt. Even he took this book from the merchant without asking for permission. He was convinced that true magic was hidden beyond the usual human laws. Laura also suggested that she leave her native place and go on a long journey in search of true witchcraft. Ravella was angered, but instead of answering, Laura wondered, why did Colt, having such a huge talent that recognized the whole city, still did not join the Academy of Heroes? Ravel realized that Mr. Colt, as well as his girlfriend, had the highest level of talent. Wanda said that he once wanted to study at the Heroes Academy, but finally gave up this dream to prepare for his future role of the heir. Colt said that when he refused, it was very surprised by everyone, because the Academy of Heroes was not accepted. However, in the end, they resigned to his decision. And Ravel could still not believe in this strange world. Lara still felt disappointed. She did not understand why Colt questioned her studies, if she did not even plan to become an heir. She later learned that Colt had another, much more serious reason. Mr. Colt asked Ravella about his ability. Ravel replied that he was an ordinary magician, and it was thanks to his skills that he was able to stop the magic of Lana. Colt praised Ravella for such skill. Finally, Ravel dared to admit that his true power was always Dylan. Hearing these words, Colt approached very close, which he was scared of the guy. It turned out that he knew for a long time about who had to cross Dylan's talent. Mr. Colt recalled the evening when he received his talent. God himself then told him that there was a man with the gift of hard work, and that they would meet, but only if he did not join the academy. It was to this person that he trusted to learn how to spell. Ravel listened carefully to him and asked what plans he had now. Colt said without thinking that he would travel with Ravel, because together it would be easier for them to reach new peaks in magic. Lara suddenly joined the conversation and said she would go with Ravel on a trip. The guy was surprised because she did not show any interest before. Colt just shrugged and said that he did not try to understand Lara because the merchants are often ready for anything for the benefit. If this girl wants to be near me, she probably has her benefit. Lara blushed and, lost, could not answer anything. Ravel realized that although Lara is very smart, his own perseverance and abilities were also of great value. If they combine efforts, they will be able to achieve both wisdom and wealth. Seeing that the girl is worried, Ravel offered her to travel with him. He noted that both magic and the ability to follow the rules are important for travel, so a good team trading will be useful. Lara is very greedy, but she gives her new lessons every day. And Kaya wants to stay with her also, because she often treats him with almonds, which he loves so much. When Colt asked if the guy wanted to sell his dragon, Lara was angry and firmly said that he would never allow it, because Kaya is a true friend for her. Everyone was surprised because money was always the most important for Lara. Lana, however, opposed a joint journey, because she could not agree that such a wise man should travel with such a strange company. How could one abandon the inheritance and leave the academy for the sake of a strange union? However, the cult remained firm in its decision. He asked Lana to take on all things until he was. At that moment, Lana suddenly felt something unusual. The magical power of Colt made her blush and feel as if she looked at herself. Colt apologized to everyone, saying that he needs to go out for a short time. However, no one understood why he really did it. Lana remained with a strange anxiety in the soul. When the girl finally came to her senses, she suddenly promised to help Mr. Colt in everything and take on all the worries. Ravel began to suspect that he could be influenced by magic. Colt explained that he only read one opinion in her head. He also recalled that there is a rule. Those heirs who do not want inheritance should leave the house. Now this rule can be used. Ravel was well aware of how powerful and confusing mental magic could be. That is why he decided to ask Colt whether he was really sure of his decision. He explained that when estates and trade guilds are rich, there is an increasing dispute between them. Lana will be able to find a way to compromise, although she is sometimes mistaken. Lana is a good representative of the nobility. She often walks in the city, watching ordinary people living, and eventually realizes, no one dreams of poverty. Colt explained that he himself comes from the main branch of the family, and Lana from the younger one. Due to the strict and unreasonable rules, it cannot become the heir to the main line. Ravel thought, it is time that it was time to cross the rules. Colt supported this idea. After all, mental magic covered not only the estate itself, but also anyone who could intervene. A difficult and long road was ahead, but Savel firmly decided to go to the end and get the title of Great Master. At this point, the maid with a smile reported that they had already prepared everything for the trip. Even books of dark magic, which Colt had not yet read. Ravel was genuinely surprised by the loyalty they showed, and said that Colt was a true master of influence on another's mind. Colt just smiled and admitted that he first tried a mental attack. He recently learned about this effective way from the ancient book. Lana heard a conversation and asked Colt whether he was going to apply mental magic on it. Colt only seriously replied that she did not even imagine how it all really works. Ravel realized that sometimes cunning was needed, even if it seems dishonest. His talent for tireless work brought him peace, strength, and confidence. And if you add wisdom to that, it becomes a real way to invincible force. Inspired, Colt immediately offered to go on the road together. He believed that by combining efforts, they would be able to achieve great achievements. Ravel mentioned the unusual structure of his magic and asked Colt what he thought about. He replied that among all the theories of magic he known to him was only in ancient legends about lost magic. Colt watched with admiration for Ravel's unusual abilities and asked him to share the details. However, Ravel himself did not suspect that he had ancient magic. He just studied carefully, and everything turned out to be himself. After going outside the city, they plunged on a trip, full of fun and exciting adventures. On their way, there were monsters who became a great opportunity for them to train. Until serious dangers emerged, Colt and Swell were mastered magic together and exchanged knowledge. Lara and Lana also quickly found common interests, and Kaya just rejoiced in a warm and friendly atmosphere. The city of Mage attracted the most bold adventurers who came here to test themselves and their capabilities. There was once a giant maze that was changing and filled with magic and strange creatures all the time. Only one person, Satira, was able to get out alive and got rich. Before going on the road, it was necessary to choose a guild. Lara promised to help with this, but no one would do the entry for me. Colt warned me to be careful, because Larry cannot be trusted, because only he knows the true truth. Suddenly, a stranger with long ears appeared in front of Lara. She had fun to join her guild, which she considered the best. Lara immediately refused. When you see that someone is experiencing, you understand right away. This guild is small and incapable of attracting truly strong people. It is better to join a powerful organization where there are opportunities for development. However, the girl with her ears stubbornly said that it was in her guild that the real masters of the sword became. Colt laughed sincerely, and Ravella was interested in this idea. But Lara warned them. The forces can be obtained in other ways. The stranger explained that in their guild, talent is not the main thing. The main thing here is to temper the mind and body to the very edge of opportunities. It is because of this that many do not withstand and seem. Ravel still suggested looking at this place. Lara said it was only a waste of time, but Colt ordered to turn to the right. They approached the huge guild building and were amazed at its size. Colt was surprised because his feeling this time he was brought. Instead, Lara was angry. How can such a weak guild can have such a striking building? Inside was quiet and empty. The girl immediately noticed there only one man, and recognized her acquaintance in him. She was angry with her father, because he did not pay attention to her at all. She became awkward before other people, and Ravel only watched all this and did not understand how they could be a family at all. The bald man said that this year there were more students, but the girl calmly noted that she was only 12 years old. Colt was lost for a moment. He did not understand what was happening. The man explained that all beginners usually seem when they face difficulties. They do not want to leave their comfort zone or deal with stress. After that, a little hugged, he shouted loudly the name of Aiden, the same student who was so proud of. Snail froze for a moment. Colt noticed as Saville changed on his face, and wondered what had happened. Ravel explained that Aiden was his father's name. Maybe it's just a chance, but even a drunk old man could not stay indifferent. He incredibly quickly snatched the sword into the guy and looked at him carefully. He immediately recognized familiar patterns in his hand. Ravel was angry with him to be returned to his weapon. Hearing this, the old man immediately remembered the past and realized that he was faced with the son of Aiden. He asked if he was the son of a sword master. He added that he heard about this guy from an old letter he once received from Aiden. All around were stunned by what they learned. No one could even imagine that Ravel's father was the same legendary swordsman who once studied in this village. It turns out, and Ravel is not an ordinary magician at all. Ira has thought about the new opportunities that open before her. And Bonzo, surprised by this random meeting, could not remember how much time had passed since he had last communicated with Aiden. Borzo did not stop and continued to speak, introducing everyone to his daughter. He then told that he had previously been known as a demon sword demon. According to him, Aiden should remember their old friendship. Ravel just learned about this bald giant. Borzo did not accept it as an image. Aiden often behaved in the same way. Then he thought about what exceptional the guy was. Borzo did not let the bottle out of his hands even during the conversation. He enthusiastically told what abilities Aiden has, making another sip. For Ravel, these were news. He had not heard about it before. For Borzo, Aiden was an exemplary student, a talented, powerful, as if the gods themselves gave him their strength. Ravel realized that his father had long abandoned his talent. Borzo seems to have wanted to push his father to join the guild. But strict workouts have scared many students even earlier. Colt explained that guild had fallen due to lack of perseverance. Most could not stand the pace and just went. Borzo nodded in response, but proudly added that the guild was still holding on. Now, when the son of the legendary Aiden swordsman appeared, hope has appeared. He can pass the same trials and become part of the Brotherhood. Borzo did not want to waste time. so he immediately suggested that Ravel start a workout to learn the unique technique of sword possession. However, the guy did not share such enthusiasm, suggested to wait a little. He wanted to know more about other guilds. It was very surprised by Borzo, and Iroh tried not to persuade him not to waste time, but Borzo insisted on his own. He wanted her to try everything to see. No other guild would match them. Ravel realized that here, in the maze, people come to gain such experience that you will not find in ordinary life. But small guilds often cannot provide it. Iroh was angry with her father. It seemed to her that all her efforts were in vain. She tried so hard for someone to pay attention to her. Colt suggested not to delay and move on, because a girl with long ears could not allow them to leave. The next one was the Guild of the Red Wolf. There was a lively atmosphere, and among the adventurers, it had a better reputation. After sitting at the table, everyone agreed that this place was very cozy, and they were often told well. Here they are even known to follow the highest rank. It turned out that the rank in this world opens the way to various tasks and opponents, from easy affairs to clashes with monsters capable of erasing entire country from the face of the earth. Colt was interested in growing here, and Lara sincerely sympathized with Eerie. At this time, a quarrel between the boys broke out at the entrance. Everyone insisted that he deserved to be called a real warrior. Among them was a guy named. He drew attention to the newcomers and asked if they were intention to enter this guild. Colt just smiled. This day brought more and more surprises. And Ravel noticed a familiar feeling, from the boy fanned with arrogance and self-confidence. Age suggested that everyone share their abilities. The first spoke Colt, told about his wisdom, and really surprised the guy. After him, Ravel made and mentioned Dylan's talent. Ajito was in surprise that he had never heard of such, and persistently advised them to go, explaining their guilds did not need them like them. Ravel immediately realized that he was not mistaken in his thoughts about this arrogant brazen. Again said that he was only interested in those who strong, so he decided to take only Colt, and ordered everyone else to go away. Ravel realized that it is better not to contact such people. However, Colt called the agitated pathetic, explaining that true power depends not on talent, but on perseverance, achievements, and willpower. Agree was convinced that the true value of a person depends only on his talent. He believed that no workouts were able to change it. It was difficult to disagree with this. Guilds really needed new people, but it would be wrong to evaluate them only. Ravel decided to suggest a little bit and asked, "What will happen if some weak wins such a famous sword as you? All your loud glory will disappear immediately." Against anger so much that his eyes became red. He was ready to destroy anyone who dared to oppose him. Suddenly, there was a cat girl. She and Irony asked if he was arguing again, and turned to him by his name. Fool. Ravella's friends looked silently without imagining what could happen at this meeting. The guild, which at first glance seemed promising, was in fact a collection of arrogant fools, which constantly tried to prove something to someone. Again, finally, they said that at the novice tournament they will certainly meet, and then everyone will be able to see what anyone is capable of. Bard did not hear anything about the tournament, but Kishka Lizzie told him that once a year there was a competition for beginners. This is an important event, because the winning guild is respectful and fame among all. When friends finally left guild, they felt relieved. The atmosphere was unpleasant there. However, everyone has agreed. In this city the main thing is power, and the erythematosis is just suitable to become stronger. Meanwhile, the burger ate lively and thought about how to prove his power in the battle with new rivals. But Lizzie warned him, "You should not relax too much." She pointed to a small scratch on his stomach and said that if Ravel really intended, she would be able to cut it even earlier, even before the sword was near his neck. He did not even understand how close was defeat. Self-confidence is often dangerous. The real power is not in arrogance, but in skills and skills. If you have not yet understood it, you lack the experience. Saville wondered. If you win the tournament, everyone will know about it. He will get interesting tasks and be able to pass real trials. Friends just laughed, they say. Such plans are too complicated for a regular guy. But Colt, on the contrary, supported. He said that to be famous on his own is a great idea. Everyone has one impression. After the Guild of the Red Wolf, there was such an unpleasant sentiment that no one wanted to return there. Friends returned to the empty guild of Borzo. Before you come, they talked about how difficult they will be training and what prospects are waiting for them. Colt did not want to make a lot of effort, but friends persuaded him to try. Finally, the tournament day has come. A huge crowd gathered in the main arena, who was humming in anticipation of the spectacle. The presenter, beautiful and energetic Kanna, announced the commentator of the tournament. he became Sid from the Guild of the Red Wolf. Everyone was surprised because Sid was a seeker of the adventures of the highest S-class. The presenters successfully set the audience to the positive, and here he finally came a signal. The first round began. The real show started. 2 participants went to the arena. The strongest sword of the guild, the agitated, and the sage, who had to show what his talent was capable of. Diligence. The audience laughed. How can a guy who just can compete with an experienced sword? However, Lara firmly told everyone to silence and watch carefully. Borzo watched closely at what was happening in the arena. He sincerely believed in the victory of Ravel, but at heart he still hesitated. The opponent seemed too strong and experienced. He sincerely wanted the guy to win. Let him show this self-confident rival his place. Finally, the presenters announced the battle. Sound records conveyed the voices of the leaders so clear that everyone in the hall was able to hear them. The arena subsided, and everyone kept their breath, preparing to see the fascinating match of beginners. A few weeks ago, when I came to this city, my friends organized me a celebration in honor of my arrival. The dish was a miracle. Everyone noticed that the ingredients were wonderful, and the little dragon Q gladly screamed, tasting the best pieces. Ira has never met such a beast before. Ravel told her that it was a very baby, and over time it would become much larger. Ira, with interest and simpleness, asked if she could stroke it. When she hugged the dragon, he was melting with tenderness. He felt her warmth and kindness, and realized that she was a good person. Ravel was amazed, because he never saw Q so much show his emotions. But then the dragon himself explained, he is well versed in human souls. At this time, Borzo, having drained a few mugs of lemonade, finally decided to start a serious conversation. Lara did not become an adventure seeker, but she had a talent for trade. She skillfully did business and repeatedly rescued the bankruptcy shop. After looking at all the papers, Lara learned that Borzo left the adventure craft for a long time because of the injury. Lara still turned to Borzo and South to find out what their abilities. It turned out that Urot was able to shoot with a bow, using magic, and was very proud of it. For Ravel, it was news, and Colt did not surprise. Ira said that thanks to her talent, she is able to shoot magical balls. It is very convenient in battle at a distance. Most of all, she loves to use 2 pistols. Colt asked to appreciate the guns. Lara said these weapons were inexpensive. Ira sincerely confessed that they simply have no money on the more expensive option. And Ravel added that these guns, in his opinion, are too weak. Colt asked Ravel why he would become even stronger if he has achieved a lot. Friends joked that it is probably because of a girl, but Ravel only asked them not to invent unnecessary. He remembered his childhood girlfriend in the name of Anna. She did not dream of war at all, but she had a dream to join the Heroes' Academy. Because of this, their paths parted, but they both believed that they would still meet in the future. If Anna enters the academy, she will join the army and become a defender. Ravel promised to become stronger to protect her from all the dangers of war. Friends were amazed by his sincerity and determination. The girls did not hide joy, and envied Anna a little, because not everyone is happy to be near a guy who sincerely cares and works courageously for the sake of strength. It was at this point that Ravel first discovered their true purpose. He, full of enthusiasm, immediately suggested to start special workouts, and all friends supported this idea. Everyone wanted it to become the best sword. A few weeks have passed, and the moment has come to check new forces. Again, full of confidence, promised to demonstrate everything he learned from the time of their meeting in the Red Wolf. Ravel just smiled quietly. He immediately realized that it was a new form. All these indicative pranks with Lizzie seemed to him a simple theater. Ravel was silent about his ideas and only advised to be alert, but he only waved his hand. He did not mean anything to him. It was more important to win. He made it clear that it was enough to act. Agree, who wanted glory, rushed forward. However, his actions were too easy to read. Snail prepared for it in advance. This time he did not intend to stay in the shade. All his blows were as strong as possible. That's exactly what he wanted to go. He noted that no one would die here, because the arena itself is protected by high magic, which protects the lives of all fighters. The soldiers are considered to be defeated only when his vital energy is completely exhausted. But that does not mean that he dies. Thanks to these rules, all participants can fight for full force without worrying about their lives. The audience watched the duel enthusiastically. Some believed in the victory of the angered, and others cheered for Ravel, though they did not particularly hope for his success. This duel reminded Ravel of his childhood, how he trained with his father in their village. It is perhaps because of these lessons that he was able to enter the Heroes' Academy. But now he no longer copied other people's techniques. Within a few minutes, he saw that his opponent was not as simple as it seemed at first glance. Ravel promised that he would show everything he learned. And these were not just words. The workouts were indeed grueling. He worked on himself without stopping, and his friends were closely watching his every step. The main thing here was Borzo. He conducted training as confidently as his father did. His methods were harsh, but gave a good result. And Lara, meanwhile, she was sad at the dragon. Borzo has always emphasized that it was necessary to remain focused in all circumstances. Running with additional weight helps to strengthen not only the body, but also learn to control yourself. Each step was becoming more difficult. The power of gravitational magic Borzo was incredibly powerful. The workouts were so exhausting that Ira could no longer withstand them. She was convinced again. It is good that she chose the life of a merchant, not a warrior. But Ravel did not intend to stop. He strained all his strength, clenched his teeth and gathered his magical energy to move forward. It was thanks to perseverance that he rested on his feet, unlike Ira. At this point, Borzo silently was fond of his stability. But even this was not enough. The sage could no longer hold up and fainted. Lara, excited, rushed to him. Ravel was able to overcome the force of gravity with magic and strengthen his power, but his body did not have time to adapt to these sudden changes. He lost control of the situation. Now, to achieve something again, he will have to start over. And Colt moved forward, focused as ever. His confidence and determination caused genuine respect. It was evident that Colt resists the magic of gravity due to his own, very strong magic. This is only a true witchcraft master. Seeing that Savell was confused, Colt said, "You will not be able to protect Anna, so imagine, if Borzo attacks her, what will you help her?" Borzo quickly realized that Colt only encourages the guy and did not want to look a pagan. And yet, this tactic was acting. Ravel immediately took his hands. After the words of Colt, his spirit became even stronger. In a duel from the Agita, he felt a strong influx of strength. Observers were just surprised. How did it happen that even the best attacks of the Agito can't achieve the goal? Everyone was convinced that the agitated, the most right among the swordsmen and the unsurpassed hunter, who always ahead of others. But this time he did not hit, and it began to annoy him. He lost peace, became more impatient, and wanted to complete this strange duel as soon as possible. Ravel was just waiting for the moment when the enemy would lose balance and open to strike. Lara from Borzo was passionate about everything. That is how the fruits of the right training work. This technique was created for battles with monsters, but is it really a look from them? The chosen tactic came perfectly, although Lara still felt anxious. Ravel skillfully avoided the enemy's strikes and immediately answered his attacks. With every instant, his body became more agile and strong, because the battle has hardened him more and more. Everyone realized this guy could attack at any time, and almost did not spend magical power. His attack remained completely unexpected. The audience was delighted. The hero skillfully managed his life and magical power, and all this became possible due to his incredible diligence. Sid and Kanna did not understand why their expectations were not satisfied. They were amazed at how it happened that the strongest sword of the Red Wolf's Guild suddenly lost in the eyes of everyone. Although he was often defeated in life, this time he decided to fight the last, even if everything went wrong. Death. He recognized the courage of his opponent and praised for his unwavering determination. Slow exhaustion tactics began to produce results. Ravel asked with a smile if he was ashamed to lose a newcomer. He confessed that it was truly humiliating, but he recalled, "The battle continues, and everything could change." Ravel realized that he already had a complete advantage. His rival was confused and could not focus. All you have to do is take the last, decisive step. And it happened. A sudden blow to the nape of the neck knocked out the soil from under his feet, even from an experienced sword. He shook, and the people around the surprise. Everyone understood at once. It was real magic. No one has time to blink as a fire broke out in the midst of them. Such a spectacular trick simply stunned everyone. Snail planned everything in advance to have more space for the attack. He actively acted without letting the enemy close. He did not want to lose his chance, so he gathered all his strength and prepared to strike the strongest blow. For him, this step meant approaching the main goal, to gain more power to fulfill his duty. Finally, Ravel struck a decisive blow. The vital energy of the hobby disappeared completely. The audience in the arena exploded with loud applause. The presenters announced the winner's name. Everyone was surprised. The most masterful sword lost unexpectedly and very quickly. Lara and her friends rejoiced in this and did not hide their delight. Now it was clear to everyone. Savell became the main contender for winning the tournament. However, his forces were almost exhausted. There is very little magical energy. Despite the defeat, he quickly came to his senses and defeated his second opponent, Oscar, a swordmaster from the Crown Sword Guild. And in the third round, he managed to overcome Gold, a skilled warrior with an axe from the Guild of the Volatile Axe. After these victories, everyone spoke about him. He went out to the fourth round, full of determination to be the winner. The audience did not hide the admiration almost recently. Almost no one believed in Ravel, and now everyone saw with his own eyes how he became a truly strong and dangerous rival. Further on the arena came a wonderful thinker with magical abilities, which has never been injured in past battles. When she appeared with 2 pistols in her hands, everyone around the breath enthusiastically. Many believed that she was able to stop Ravel. Remote weapons are a real danger. However, Savell remained calm and was alert. The presenters officially reported the start of the match. A week before the tournament, Ira was terribly angry. Her beloved guns broke and exploded just during shooting. Lara explained that the reason for the poor quality of weapons, they did not withstand the capacity of magical charges. Snail was very worried that something could happen to the girl, so he suggested to postpone the workout because he had a bad premonition. Lara suggested buying a new weapon, but Ira was well aware. Pistols made abroad cost at least 100 gold. Her old couple was once presented by a father who was a master from another country. No one agreed to repair. It cost too much. Then Ira decided that if the tournament wins, he will be able to make money for a new weapon. Yet the thinker could not get rid of fear of failure. Lara appealed to Ravel with a request. Let him explain Irie that there is always another way. Ravel decided to take up the case. He promised that he would try to make revolvers on his own. He said that this is like cooking, only the main thing is to have the necessary materials. Lara initially laughed at this and called for Colt to help. Ravel, of course, had no instructions. But if you experiment well, another type of weapon could be created. The main thing is that there is magical iron at hand. Lara only had a handful of stocks, and she was in no hurry to share them. But Savell was interested in a fragment of iron and realized that he could not be pulled. He decided to use his knowledge of alchemy and try to create weapons for the first time in his life. The girls were delighted to watch everything that happened, and Ravel, seeing how they were holding pistols in their hands, inspired and decided to come up with a unique weapon for 2 erotic guns. At first he assembled the barrel, then gently attached the arms, and then added the sight and bent part. The heroine watched with delight. Ravel really resembled an experienced master of weapons. Even Colt struck how he skillfully owned magical metal. The one who was observant could notice that there is much in common between magic and alchemy. The metal turned out to be much stronger than Ravel thought, and his magical strength was not enough to complete the plan. The Era hesitated a little, but did not lose the faith that they would work out. The thinker sincerely thanked the boy for the courage. She was surprised that he was able to make a new weapon when her own guns failed. At this time, the Borzo, the leader of the Red Wolf. Upon learning that the guy created a new weapon for Ira, he praised him, calling the true son of his famous father. The moment has come to check the guns at the tournament. Ira intended to stay at a distance and fight from a safe position, shooting from afar. Snail understood well. If he did not fit closer as soon as possible, he can be blown. He rushed forward, shortening the distance, and the Kanna exclaimed with anxiety. The balls were already ricocheted on the ground. Ravel often trained with Ira, so he knew her techniques and strategy well. He watched her carefully to see the slightest drawback in defense and used the right moment. He cleverly missed magical shells, and when he was close enough, he struck and knocked his weapon out of her hands. The audience in the arena supported his loud applause, and suddenly something unexpected happened. Ravel refused to make a final blow. Kanna shouted into the microphone, not understanding why he did so. Ira was desperate. Ravel believed that Ira could achieve much more. She only needs to master the skills of using guns. Even if she does not have a weapon, she remembers everything that her father taught. In all circumstances, it is necessary to fight until the end. The girl understood everything well, but the heart covered fear. Tears appeared in her eyes. She honestly confessed that she was difficult to believe in her own strength. Ravel was not too confident, but always moved to the goal. He believed that hard work weighs more than natural talent. Irie had to be more careful about her desires and not give up, even when everything seems against her. She remembered that her father always believed in her strength. Meanwhile, Lizzie noted that he thought about. He sincerely confessed to the girl that he still considers his failure so that he would not repeat the same mistakes in the future. Lizzie, with a sly smile, reminded Ajito of his failure. He had to restrain his emotions when he acknowledged, this time, Ravella failed to win. Lizzie said that Ravel was thoroughly prepared. He carefully studied the style of the Agito and, thanks to his abilities and hard work, won. The agitated was angry and promised himself that he would no longer be defeated. He firmly decided to do his best to become stronger. Lizzie realized that sometimes defeat helps to see the truth. After all, when you try, this persistence can be a real force. Ravel developed due to its stubbornness. He achieved what seemed impossible to others. Lizzie was convinced that the basis of all these events hides the dark magic that needs to be destroyed. In the arena, Ira took herself in her hands. Tears had already disappeared, and anger turned her strength. She strongly went on the attack. The audience could not restrain the delight. She skillfully avoided strokes, quickly counterattacked and moving lightning. The voltage in the hall increased to the maximum. She strongly pushed the enemy, quickly reached the guns and opened fire with magic bullets. Kanna screamed with delight, and Borzo looked at her daughter proudly. The bullets raced a frantic pace, and Ravel skillfully reflected them with his sword. Ira was kept at a safe distance and acted according to tested tactics. It was thanks to this strategy that she won her first match. However, Ravel has already understood her approach. The thinker, although she felt a new wave of fear, continued the struggle without surrendering. She intended to impress the enemy unexpectedly. She shot sharply. Snail barely had time to dodge. He did it literally at the last moment. But suddenly, it happened somewhat unpredictable. Ira felt severe, piercing pain. The presenter decided that these were the consequences of a powerful magic that influenced Ira. And because of this, her vital energy weakened sharply. Kanna did not silence for a moment, describing each movement. She loudly stated that Ravel was approaching and making another step to her next victory. As soon as Savel came closer, Ira suddenly raised her hand and pressed the hook. She cunningly imparted to deceive her enemy. In fact, it was only a cunning deception. She pretended to be very tired to suddenly catch Ravel. She now has the opportunity to strike a decisive blow. The guy believed her words, because he remembered how Ira often lost his consciousness in training. But this time she behaved calmly and decisively, and now she was in a favorable position. When Ira pressed on the hook, nothing happened. She listened in surprise. This sound was familiar to her, and here she remembered where she had already heard him. At the same moment she realized, Ravel again used alchemy and turned the guns so that they lost their magical power. But even without weapons, she was determined to fight a naked. Ravel ahead of everyone. His rapid blow was crucial. The audience was happily applauded, and Ira suddenly felt that her hopes for the victory had finally disappeared. Despite the defeat, the girl assured that next time she would become stronger. Savel remained pleased with the battle and promised to wait for revenge. They shook their hands, and the presenter Kanna announced loudly, the fight between members of one guild was over. The winner was Savel. But Mr. Colt did not feel joy. He was annoyed that Ravel became so strong, and even deserved respect among girls. He considered friendship in a vain business. I am convinced that she only prevents him from becoming stronger and more famous. One day, the maid came across a book that gathered the battle receptions of Father Colt. But Colt himself was not too surprised. He has long been in his memory. The maid was angry and said that books could not be thrown away. At the same time, she advised him to speak less and more to practice magic. At this time, Kanna announced the start of the final round. Participants who were expected to see in the finals came together in the duel. The audience did not hold back emotions and rejoiced loudly. The audience was enthusiastically chanting, and the presenter enthusiastically urged everyone to miss the most anticipated match of the entire tournament. The final met the wise Colt and a tireless newcomer who was loved by everyone for his hard work and endurance. Colt noted that Ravel had no weapon. However, Savel looked absolutely calm and confident. This time, he came to battle for only one purpose, to show which of them the two are strong. Ravel said he wanted to become the strongest in the world. To achieve this, he needs to overcome the sage. To do this, Ravel trained persistently and for a long time. Kanna thought that Ravel was aimed at fighting only with magic. It almost guaranteed an interesting and beautiful match. However, Colt just smiled. He did not gather. He was fun with the rival's self-confidence. Still, he praised Ravella, at least for his perseverance. Colt did not waste time. He instantly released a fire arrow and sent it directly to the rave. But the guy had time to reject and tried to stop the magical attack. He managed to avoid serious injuries. Kanna was surprised that the flames suddenly had extinguished. She could not understand how it happened, and Colt immediately guessed. Ravel used the magic of the wind to dispel the fire. Colt acknowledged that Ravel was really a strong magician, but still considered him a pathetic person. However, Ravel did not pay attention to these images and did not allow himself to provoke. Colt tried to convey to Ravel that his goal did not make sense. He said that to protect others was a futile business. Colt assured that if they combined their knowledge, they would be able to achieve anything. But Ravel did not think to give up his dreams. For him, friends and goal were not unnecessary things, but a real way to power. Colt remained dissatisfied with the answers heard. He promised himself no longer to waste time on those whom he considers unnecessary, such as Ira or someone else from the guild. That is why Colt sought to win. He wanted to show Ravel that he was wrong and his chosen path has no future. The great sage suddenly attacked, but Ravel managed to jump sideways and escaped a blow. It all only cheered the arrogant column. The battle became more and more fierce. The audience froze in anticipation of the decisive moment. However, even with such tension, none of the rivals gained preference. Kanna was shocked. This is no longer a competition of newcomers. Only real experienced veterans could use such powerful magic. With every minute, Savel felt the forces leave his body. Fatigue grew, and the enemy still created powerful spells without losing the tempo. The Colt Sage owned almost inexhaustible magical energy and attacked constantly without worrying about the power spent. But Ravel did not think to give up. Anger boiled inside him because he mentioned a controversy with Colt that it is more important, magic or true power. Colt always suggested why attention should be paid and what could be bypassed. Especially he did not endure mental magic, because in his own experience, Ravel was convinced that she could conquer even the strongest people. But to use this force during the open battle is risky. The enemy can be alert, and then magic will no longer work as it should. They often discussed magic, but it became clear. Their views were not at all alike. Colt believed that only ancient spells should be studied, and Ravel sought to become a master of all kinds of magic. He wanted to have a true power, not to stop at something alone. Colt considered it an superfluous and waste of time. It seemed to him that it was more important to focus only on strong spells and his own magical power. He advised to forget about everything unnecessary and try to feel the true essence of magic. But Savel remained in his opinion and did not stop acting, focusing on the main. Watching the column, he noticed that magical energy was not felt at all. Colt may have learned to hide his strength using his experience and ingenuity. Ravel did not even think of defeat, he sought only victory. In contrast, Colt did not stop in attacks, constantly repeating that Ravel was able to capture any sorcery. Then Colt decided to act differently. He caused the shining spheres around him and began to prepare a new magical attack. The magical blow struck Ravel, and he immediately felt the powerful energy covered him on all sides, as if he were inside the magical storm. Ravel fainted with pain, kneeling, and Colt only looked at his victory. Bozo tilted his head disappointed. He did not expect such a completion, though he acknowledged that Colt was really strong. Lar shared that she had never seen the sage so cruel. Ravel, though he felt severe pain, did not give up. He confidently looked in his eyes and said he was not going to retreat and could still continue the fight. Colt calmly said that he took advantage of the ancient spell and a magic stone to strike a final blow. He added that Ravel is time to leave hope. The sage gathered a huge stock of magical power. He had only one idea, whether Ravel could stand against such an incredibly strong blow. But Ravel was alert. He asked not to restrain the strength, because all those present sought to see what the famous sage was capable of. Colt accepted the call, but as soon as he prepared for the attack, a magical circle suddenly appeared in the arena. It was a cunning trap of Ravel, which he created, moving on the ground. Savel made a cunning move. He used a collar spell, only much more powerful. Right in the center of the arena, a large magical circle lit up. A strong whirlwind rose, like a real hurricane, who was devastating everything that happened in his path. This is how the air element expressed his answer. Even the audience barely restrained not to catch up from their places. At this time, Ravel remembered how they spent time together. While Ravel had fun with his friends, Colt plunged into the books, fearing that he would not need anyone once and forget it. Those words then seemed like a ravala. He replied that the most important thing is that Colt was interested in magic, which means that he values true power, the power of perseverance. Colt was very surprised by Ravel's frankness. He even ashamed, and then confessed that he finally solved what a Savile was actually guided. At that moment, Savile fell to the ground. His magic ran out. Colt was convinced that he won. However, it was only a deceitful trap. In fact, it was a trap. Suddenly, the sage rushed into the attack. His words were stunned by Colt. It was an illusion, strengthened by magic and the power of influence on the mind. Sage really wrapped it around his finger, using a little magic and skillfully creating the illusion. Its real power is in the ability to skillfully build the idea. Colt still tried to resist, but eventually resigned with defeat. A guy from a guild named Ravel was able to defeat a great sage in an honest battle. The most striking instant was the moment when Ravella was declared the winner of the tournament. The crowd exploded with delight. The presenter praised him sincerely, and his friends could not hide their pride. Borzo mentioned that Aiden, Ravella's father, was able to combine magic and sword skill, and became a real master in this. He was convinced that Ravel was also able to become the same if he wanted. It took a few weeks, and the city returned to its usual rhythm. But Agito still could not accept his defeat. He began to annoy the bustle in the city, the demure in the bazaar, as suddenly he heard that someone was calling him from behind. Lauren's merchant came and congratulated on the renewed guild. However, Agito immediately paid attention to the mistakes on the bulletin board. ENT thanked and promised that it would definitely correct everything. And then she remembered how after the tournament was filled with quests, therefore there was no time to rest. She shared the story of how people came in arms, armor, and various assignments. All this movement had one main reason. Ravel won the beginner tournament. The era with long ears also gained popularity, taking 5th place. But Agito, staying dissatisfied, became angry and shook at the group. At that moment, Ira returned after another risky task and immediately ordered Agito to apologize for her bad behavior. Ira said that he was defeated because of his own self-confidence and because he did not appreciate Ravel's abilities. He believed that force was the most important thing, but it was his big mistake. Agito could not stand and pushed the girls roughly, not wanting to listen more to their conversations about his weakness. It was at this point that Lizzie came to the guild. While the dispute lasted, everyone was delighted with Colt. He managed to change the very basis of magic and create a new type. Laura confessed that she could not even imagine how much the Colt changed. It struck her. Suddenly, a man with a lush mustache came to her, similar to a representative of a noble kind. So it happened. But Colt immediately showed that he did not respect the aristocrats, although it may be only because of his own prejudices. The nobleman was not angry, but instead hugged the young sage firmly and promised that he would become a real friend. He was now ready to spend any money on his training. Lara looked carefully at Colt. He seemed to be able to find people who could find a lot of interesting and important. At this time, Agito recalled that Lizzie had special abilities. She seems to do nothing often, but in fact she does not pay attention to the remarks of others, because she has already gained the title of Arakid's adventurer. Lizzie said that Agito is working hard to work out so that he no longer be defeated. Then she wondered where the sage went. Lara said that Ravel was training without stopping, without giving herself a rest. He wants to achieve true skill in his own sword. Every day he imagined how he was fighting with the enemy and struggled on a solid stone. But after each blow he felt only pain, and he never saw the results. Even when he made every effort, he could not at least scratch this stone. Then Borzo asked Ravella if he remembered what this stone was made of. It turned out to be an arakok, a legendary material that is known for its incredible strength. It is almost impossible to process, but once Ravel's father was able to cut it. Borzo greatly appreciated Ravel's ability to recognize the weaknesses of enemies and skillfully use it. He possessed special talent for tactics. And if there are many enemies, how then to defend and attack at the same time? Here you already need a technique that will be able to remove everything in its path. The irresistible section technique really exists. If the sage learns to possess it, he will be able to become the strongest among all. Due to the perseverance and natural shake, Ravel advanced further. His body gained strength under the influence of magic. However, there were many riddles around, so he understood that he now needs full attention. Each false movement brought a Ravella pain and depleted his strength. However, he was unclear how his father was able to succeed without using magic. With every failure, his determination only grew. He promised himself that he could even cut the Aura Hulk. Lara was glad to run to him to share the good news. She was raised at work. But she barely crossed the threshold. Ravella was gone. He disappeared from somewhere, leaving no trace. And the guy stood confused, trying to understand what happened and where the hell took away. He got. Ravel glanced all around and immediately felt a strong magical energy on all sides. Suddenly, a gentle, charming female voice was called. At this time, the team of girls encountered a formidable monster capable of destroying everything in their path. It was very difficult for them, and the situation became increasingly dangerous. Suddenly, everything turned over. Anna suddenly rushed into battle and attacked the monster. Her unexpected appearance has given way to the rescue. When the night dragon Anna came to the rescue, the girls united and overcome the monster together. Now, they hoped for high grades for their teamwork. Everyone was happy, but Anna did not allow herself to relax. She remained attentive because anxiety was glowing in her heart, as if the disaster had not receded. Other girls said that there is nothing to fear, because there is no monsters in the academy. Everyone was in a hurry to get to the gym as soon as possible. The peace suddenly disappeared, giving way to fear. Something giant and threatening came directly to them. It was Manticore. It was a great creature with a gorgeous red mane, a lion's head and 3 rings on the tail. Her passion for hunting was bordered by obsessive obsession. Manticore became so dangerous that he was taken to the highest rank of S. Luna realized that there was almost no chance of winning, so she decided to escape. But her attempt to escape only more angry Manticore. Feeling where she went, he immediately rushed for her. The monster attacked. Fortunately, no one was killed, but after that all had no sense of security. The girls, including Anna, were very scared and realized that they needed to run immediately. However, Anna has a different idea. She decided to distract the monster on herself, and she commanded her friends to flee. The girl believed in her own strength and very much wanted the teachers to pay attention to her. The moon was determined not to allow it. Anna planned to fight a terrible monster. Despite the moon, Anna has already started training. The moon was worried about the girlfriend because almost no one could withstand Manticore. But Anna, though good-natured, suddenly felt like a real warrior. She understood who resisted and tried to stand at least a few minutes so that others could escape. Although Anna was a little shy, she did not want to look weak in front of the academy and her friends. At that moment, she remembered Ravela, her friend since childhood, with whom she had not seen for 3 years and had to meet again. Fear covered her heart. She was afraid that she would not be able to hold back his promises. In her soul, she was quietly apologizing. Suddenly, Ravel emerged near Anna. The girl barely believed her eyes. The guy quietly said that she would not worry. Now he would be side by side and guarding her. She no longer mentioned the monster and wanted to say something, but Ravel asked her to wait a little. He had to keep his promise at first. He first stared in the eyes of the monster of such power. Whatever it was, Anna was under his protection. He could not be mistaken. 2 friends finally met after a long separation. They always dreamed of walking around, but at first they needed to survive. Ravel was determined. He promised Anna that he would protect her until the end, because it became a meaning for his life. Once upon a time, the guy met the goddess who appeared in front of him in the form of a charming woman. He was not surprised at all. After all, Colt had previously warned him about this meeting. The longer he looked at her, the more clearly he understood. The real divine creature that can change the fate of people stands. The goddess broke silence and turned to him, asking to listen carefully because she had an important news for him. She did not stop smiling and said that Anna was now in great danger. He should act immediately. The goddess did not understand how this monster could appear within the walls of the prestigious academy. At the same time, she was genuinely admired by Ravel's courage. She suggested moving the boy directly to the monster. He asked in surprise why she decided to help him. The goddess answered that she has her own interest. The goddess confessed that the people of this world were not indifferent, although according to the rules she had to keep balance. But instead of long explanations, she just started acting. She said it was time to go, and advised Ravel not to give up and overcome the monster with whom he had not yet been deed, Manticore. And here our young hero stands face to face with a monster, preparing for a test that will check his courage and strength of spirit. However, all his blows were in vain. There was no scratch on Manticore's body. It was clear that physical strength would not help here. We need to look for another way of fighting. Anna looked at the fight with his fading, not believing her eyes. Her friend skillfully owned magic. Even magical fiery balls had no strength to influence the enemy. Feeling the danger, Ravel asked Anna to depart, because it was difficult for him to protect her and fight it. A little dragon named Kue came to the rescue, and he agreed to help Anna. Where he came from, It didn't matter. Now Ravel stood in front of a terrible monster alone. After learning that Anna was safe, he was ready to fight his best. The manor was unexpectedly struck, and his poison was lightning. The movements immediately became sluggish, so it was necessary to use magic as soon as possible. Although the poison had already acted on him, he did not stop and continued to fight. It was very difficult for him, but there was no way back. Anna, despite the order, still returned. She understood that if she does not support the Ravella, he would not survive. Surprisingly, she understood what the dragon was saying, even though they were familiar with only a few minutes. Quay felt a mysterious connection with her. They seemed to know each other for a long time. However, there is no time for reflection now. You need to save the Ravella immediately. Anna could not understand how Ku was in such a danger. After all, he only obediently obeyed the owner's order, to lead Anna to where nothing threatens. The dragon confessed that he was also not easy to watch this cruel battle, but he could not clog on the order. Therefore, Anna asked to use the power of the night dragon. She realized that there was no way back. It is time to show their true strength and save the one who loves. At this point, Ravel defended himself from the attacks by the monster, strengthening his blows with magic and carefully monitoring the cost of power. The pain in the left hand became stronger. The arm was almost listened to as if it were immobilized, but there was still a magic energy inside. This was what warned Borzo. Ravel decided to take the risk. If you allow the poison to spread in his body, he may be able to put into operation the unwavering blade. However, it is very dangerous for him. He wondered what to do, whether to be dangerous and risk life, or to try to deceive Manticore, to pretend to be completely exhausted, and then suddenly attack. The monster did not stop for a moment. His attacks fell one after the other, leaving a single second to rest. The manor stopped suddenly. Something distracted him. Finally, Ravel got a few seconds to get a breath. Suddenly, a huge dragon came down from heaven, which seemed much larger and scary than Manticore. Ravel immediately recognized his beloved pet, who suddenly became a huge, fabulous beast. Wasting time, he gave him a command to attack with fiery breathing. The guy was surprised to see how his little dragon suddenly became a huge monster, and now he was under the rule of Anna. However, no one knew for sure whether Ravel would be able to master the invincible equipment. Anna cheered him up. She said that the main thing was to believe in her own strength. Even when a giant stood in front of him, the manor was not going to retreat. At this time, Ravel clearly felt the support of his friends and gathered all his magical power to the heap. The poison spread his body, but he concentrated her influence, waiting for the best moment to activate his unwavering blade. Thanks to the support of friends, he had several precious seconds. It is at this point that Ravel strongly attacks, waving a sword that glows with bright blue flames. The first stroke did not hit the target, and the mantri immediately swung the tail to answer. But Ravel quickly jumped sideways and avoided attacks. The next Ravel stroke became fatal. His strong blade easily rolled the neck of a huge monster. Friends were stunned, and Ravella was overwhelming confidence. Now he felt a real model of diligence. Having defeated the monster and giving the skill of unbreakable blade, the guy felt ready for new adventures and was full of desire to reach even more heights. As soon as Manticora was overcome, Ravel immediately disappeared into teleportation, and without having to say a single word to his beloved. It was a moment full of joy and sadness. The battle ended, Borzo supported and helped recover, and Ravel decided to relax for a few days. Thanks to his magic, he was able to neutralize the poison and clean the body, but the left hand still remained stationary. Now it took time to recover. In the meantime, Anna became known to the entire Academy of Heroes. She was glorified by the victory over the Manticora when she saved her friends and showed true courage. A beautiful girl named Alina came to Ravel. She became a new guild administrator. Alina suggested working together and gave him a letter. The guy could not believe his eyes. The message came from the Joint Federation Guild, known for his power. He agreed to the invitation and came to the main castle. He was met with great respect and invited to a personal meeting. On the way to the Ravel Hall suddenly surrounded the giant ice statues. Among them were both knights and terrifying monsters. Everything happened at all as he expected. He gathered with his forces, preparing for battle, though he could not understand why he was attacked. But Ravel used his fiery magic and melted statues, turning them into simple water. Suddenly, a Levice, who heads the Federation, appeared. He praised the boy for his extraordinary power, noting that the Academy lost the unique opportunity to have such a hero. He then invited Ravella to lunch, treating him with juicy wild boar meat. It was the most delicious meat that Savell ever tasted. Levis said the meat was left in heat for 20 days. During this time, mushrooms appear, and it is because of them that the meat becomes soft and has a special aroma. Although this may seem unusual, careful processing completely eliminates all risks. There are also gourmets that are attracted to this special taste. Finally, Ravel asked what reason he was actually invited. Then, he was informed. They wanted to give him permission to enter the county of Alid. The reason was that he overcame the sage, the great sword, and the manticore itself. Later, the study confirmed that the poison in his body was from that manticore. Levis did not understand why Ravel was there, and Anna could not explain why she hid some details. However, the prestigious academy is the end result. Ravel was very happy because he had long dreamed of becoming a student of this academy. However, one important condition appeared in his way. In order to obtain a formal invitation, he had to reach a rank S among adventurers in just a year. He was sad, because a few seconds ago, Levis called him the best contender. Levis, having shown his wit, said that he wanted to show everyone his dignity. He believed that the real character was formed precisely through difficult tests. It is not easy to reach S-Ranga. It can go for years, and it all depends on how difficult the tasks are. Ravel realized that next year promises to be a real test. Thank you for his hospitality. He hurried to return to the guild. Levis was satisfied, because in the rave he recognized himself in his youth. And the guy himself plunged into difficult tasks and constant workouts. He later realized that he was lacking new skills. The most benefit has been the skill to create spatial equipment. Even despite the difficulty in studying this skill, Ravel was able to master it. Now he was able to keep his things anywhere and ever, not afraid of any restrictions. Lara could not hide her admiration, and even envied a little. If she had such a skill, her trade would be extremely successful. She asked to teach her this ability. Ravel explained that it is not easy to achieve this result, but if you be persistent, everything will work out. Ruar was so struck that he decided to try to repeat it himself. Side by side with the sage, they trained even during sleep. 1 hour of such a dream gave them as much strength as 8 hours of ordinary rest. Thanks to daily jogging and training, Ravel became so fast that the ordinary man could no longer trace him. He learned from Yura. Administrator Leon, who was also called Amin, always gave a rave to the most complex and risky tasks. But every time he coped with them very quickly and returned immediately, ready to take up the next mission. Finally, Alina confessed that she was no longer able to entrust him with even the easiest tasks, because otherwise there will be no people in the guild. Ravel wanted to get new tasks, insisted on this, and it even caused the quarrel. He felt that he was ready to stand up higher, but had to wait another month. He was not going to give up and sincerely asked him to test him to reach the highest rank faster. Alina agreed and promised to arrange for him a test quest before raising. At this moment, Lara put forward the idea. She suggested an unusual mission that would last a whole month. She had already anticipated that Snail would seek to gain an increase. I had a difficult task, to get the horns of the Minotaur at the 20th level of the dungeon for Paris. It took a lot of effort and endurance. Ravel did not hide his joy. He sincerely thanked for the chance and promised that he would definitely get up. He hugged Laura and felt true happiness. But the girl suddenly asked him to get acquainted with the conditions of the mission. It turned out that an adventurist with rank B, first you need to find 2 more partners to form a team. Ira joined them first, because she always wanted to be near Ravel. The guy sincerely thanked her for the determination, and believed that her strength would be useful for the whole team. Ira was convinced that they would be able to overcome everything, even if it came only to the 5th level of the dungeon. She did not lose any opportunity to train. Savell inspired her, and they trained together tirelessly, rejoicing every day because with each workout they became stronger. In fact, Ira attended training only once a week, but she didn't say her father. He understood everything and was silent, not asking unnecessary questions. The third was a sage of cult. Ravella surprised how he agreed quickly, because the cult dreamed of trying his new magical technique for a long time. The cult explained that he wanted to explore the possibilities of new forces. Ravel supported this idea with interest. The sage suggested that the research be conducted after the mission was completed, and Savell agreed to these conditions. The guy also dreamed with his friends on a journey. He felt gratitude for his little dragon Q, but in his soul he did not give him the thought if he would really be able to reincarnate. Ravel thought Q had to stay away, but he suddenly appeared using teleportation and joined the battle with Manticore. Everyone was amazed at how Q turned into a giant dragon. No one knew how he succeeded. The cult advised not to forget about his pet. After all, many dragon researchers have never met creatures like Q. It was rumored that the Mechanical Guild had tried to conquer Q, but he fled from them and now hides many mysteries. Finally, Savell decided to take his pet with him for a task. Q was so happy that he was ill with joy, and immediately promised that he would become the most useful in the world. The next day, the united team went to the Frapara dungeon. Guild escorted them, sincerely wanting good luck. They reached the main gate of the maze where they had to be registered first. Ira advised them to go with her because she had already had experience and knew this place well. Suddenly, Agito and Lizzie appeared on the doorstep, their long-standing acquaintances. Everyone was surprised to see them. Agito was still angry with Ravella for his defeat at the tournament, but now both fought for raising rank, and Agito also got the same task. Ravel felt a slight frustration when he learned that there were other contenders in his place. However, he was set to fight for his victory. At this time, Lizzie began to tell how the dungeon was arranged. She explained that the deeper you go down, the more dangerous the monsters become. But occasionally the boss can be found even at the upper levels. For example, the Minotaur is now on the 4th floor. When the Minotaur appeared, his land immediately took control of the Federation. Due to the danger of rank adventurers, most guilds have begun to avoid such tasks. Ravel realized that he was allowed to do so in a special way. Lena confessed that if everything was done officially, I would have to wait a whole month. So she used her wit again to speed up the case. At the entrance to the maze began to gather in turn. People argued loudly with each other. Lizzie and Agito quickly joined this queue. Ravel recalled that he has a special permission, which can make it without registration. But Agito did not think to retreat. The cult advised not to worry and still to register. But Ravella was angry that the safe place was already occupied. He finally got to the checkpoint. There was a conversation between the participants. Everyone told about their purpose. Ravel, with a smile, announced that his team was ready to go. Many adventurers went inside, then they went back. There was a noise and constant movement everywhere. The cult emphasized, above all, caution. Ravella was amazed at how many people wanted to try their hand at the maze. Ira explained to her that there were no traps on the first 10 floors, so they can be passed fairly quickly. To overtake the opponents, the team used magic that helped them to run faster, and the dead moved forward. Soon the heroes reached the 11th floor. Everyone tensed and prepared because very strong monsters were waiting for them. But suddenly the silence broke a magical attack. A large stone with a whistle fell quite near. Fortunately, no one was injured. The sage from the cult intervened in battle and released a powerful fire magic, hoping to win. But the stone enemy absorbed magic and immediately sent it back. All were shocked by such powerful power. In the end, the power of the spell was able to destroy the enemy. After that, Ravel and his comrades decided to continue to act more carefully. To move on, it was necessary to defeat every enemy. But thanks to the coordinated work of the team, they coped with even the most dangerous difficulties. Meanwhile, Agimo and Lizzie also tried to break forward. Lizzie wanted to help, but her actions were only more annoyed by Agimo. Lizzie advised him to master new techniques and test other weapons to become faster, but Agito stubbornly sought to surpass only Ravella. They reached a place where it was so quiet that even as a heart was beating, it seemed to be the beginning of something unusual. While Agito and Lizzie remained in silence, Ravel's team had already reached the 18th floor. Their movement went without complications, but the cult began to feel anxious. Suddenly, she made an irreparable mistake. She came just in a trap. At the same moment, her life was at risk. But the sage managed to save the girl by applying alchemy. He confessed that, having become acquainted with Ravel, he began to carefully explore the new opportunities of this science. He said that modern magic is much easier than ancient, so Ravel is truly special because he has rare knowledge. However, its peculiarity is able to alert others. Most people are afraid of what they do not understand, and Saville does not look like other mascot owners. Talented people are real support for the whole country. Such people are raised by special institutions, such as the Academy of Heroes. But in society, there is still a biased attitude. Those who are weaker are often considered unnecessary and unnecessary. The cult thought for a long time, perhaps even those who give people talent do not fully know what their essence actually is. The team has already reached the 19th floor, and here everyone immediately noticed that everything became much more complicated. Here both teams finally came together. Agito immediately warned everyone that a whole crowd of angry monsters awaited, so everyone had to remain careful and not lose his vigilance. No one could understand why so many monsters suddenly appeared. This has never been. Lizzie advised everyone not to be distracted and fully focus on the battle. This phenomenon was called Monster House, when many enemies appeared in front of a special part of the maze at the same time. Snail decided that if they manage to break further, they will reach the 20th floor, and there is already a Minotaur. Ravel wanted to overtake Agito because he was afraid that a dangerous trap could appear between them and the Minotaur. He already had his own idea, but the sage suggested that it was better to remain silent while roam. Suddenly, Ravel decided to deal with all the monsters at this level so that friends could only focus on the battle with the Minotaurus. He promised that he would not allow the monsters to break into a special zone. While 3 warriors fought with the boss, his task was only to detain enemies and win a few minutes. The cult was not going to agree. Their mission was threatened, and there was very little time before the arrival of the Federation. But Ravel did not give up. He believed that he could find another way to increase his rank. Lizzie decided to stay with him and support him. Everything seems easier. She was convinced that the other 3 would be able to defeat the boss on their own. Agito was not delighted. Now it seemed as if Ravel had made him a favor. However, he still agreed to follow the plan and quickly deal with the monster. The rest had to move quickly, while Ravel and Lizzie still had the strength to fight an endless crowd of monsters. If they manage to survive, legends will be made of them. Ira, together with Agito, rose quietly to the 20th floor, where they discovered and attacked the Minotaur without delay, while their comrades protected the tricks behind. Suddenly, they saw the manager of the Federation who was injured. The man warned them, "It is necessary to run as soon as possible, because this Minotaurus is much scary than at first glance." The leader, in the blood, shouted loudly that even the strongest soldiers of the rank and incapable. The monster turned out to be much more scary than they imagined. Meanwhile, Ravel and Lizzie did not stop. They cleared the path of monsters, but the enemies came and arrived. It seemed that this invasion would not end. All adventure seekers got into a dangerous trap and did not imagine how to get out. Meanwhile, while the characters fought in the maze, cheerful aristocrats enjoyed wine along with the supreme priest, who preferred simple water. As it turned out, they have known each other since childhood, so they could talk easily, without any officialness. In this world, the most important were not titles, but the abilities were the special gifts that determined the life of each person. In the tangled maze, the battle had not subsided for many hours, and no one could predict its end. The members of the cult tried to overcome the Minotaur again and again, and all their efforts were in vain. He tried to impress the monster with a strong spell of the wind, but the monster was only a little shaky and remained almost unharmed. Minotaur had special magic. He took away another's power, and it helped him heal. If they do not find the way to rescue, they are threatened with death. Lizzie and Ravel fought desperately, but no matter how many monsters they won, they only became more. Ravel again demonstrated the power of his inexhaustible sword, showing even more effective. Lizzie was enthusiastically wondered how he managed to reach such a skillful level. He calmly replied that all this was the result of his perseverance, but he noticed that with his dragon something was wrong. Ku began to panic, and his body seemed to reach dark energy. The baby jumped sideways, shouted so that they were not approached, and suddenly began to change directly in his eyes. On a solid darkness, it seemed that he was absorbed by a terrible, powerful dark magic that Savel had not yet encountered. The teams fought desperately with the Minotaurus, but none of their blow caused the monster. Ira just tried to delay time. Cult and Agito wisely watched Yura skillfully moved, and used a magical shield that she learned to create during training with Ravel. No one knew how to stop this monster. Then they decided in the cult, it is necessary to deprive him of his strength, but this needed someone's sacrifice. The sage presented the Agito flame aura, explaining that only a gap fire is able to break through the protection of the monster. The cult did not expect such. He always considered himself a selfish, and now he created a special spell and passed on his power to another. Now there was the Agito in turn, because he had to strike a decisive blow. Meanwhile, Ravel with Lizzie thought that happened to Ku. He suddenly turned into a giant monster that destroyed everything in his path. It became too dangerous, so Lizzie decided not to waste time and try to defeat the dragon while she had a chance. Ravel stood on his side of her pet, despite the fact that Lizzie no longer saw in him a sweet dragon. It was already a terrible monster for her. It was not just a beast for Ravel Quay, but a true friend and an important part of his family. His sincere words deeply impressed the dragon, as if something turned over. A huge body trembled with pain, but within a few minutes, QA overcame his fury and became small and calm again. But this time, Ravel himself was burning with anger. Anyone who dare even to approach his friend could pay his life. Swore with flames in his heart made his way through a crowd of monsters, and the more he was angry, the stronger his strength became. Meanwhile, Ajito, full of power from the fiery magic of the sage, rushed into the battle, trying not to keep up with his enemy. Although his character was not easy, he showed true courage and boldly rushed to the Minotaur. Ira did not stop and fired constantly from the pistols, hitting magic bullets just on the target, even if the enemies were far away. Snail climbed to a new level. He became a real berserker who carried everything around him. Ira, Colt, and Ajito sighed with relief. Their plan was successful, and the threat from the Minotaur retreated. On one of the lower floors of the labyrinth was a complete silence. Lizzie looked carefully at Ravel, who had just dealt with all the monsters, but now seemed to be confused. Everything that happened was deeply impressed by the guy. He could not keep his tears, looking at his friend dragon. Meanwhile, the Supreme Priest talked to his longtime friend, and remembered that some people think that giftedness can make the human spirit weaker. People with outstanding abilities began to weaken physically. The monsters on the main roads became less, and the danger disappeared. But beyond the borders of civilized cities, people often have told stories about terrible creatures that could attack by surprise. Therefore, no one allowed himself to lose his vigilance. Verkhovna decided not to continue this conversation. She was used to trusting only facts and knew that you would not change some things. At that moment, the door opened quietly to the room, and because of them, someone's dark, unfamiliar hand stretched. The mysterious stranger appeared in the holy place again. Everything left here, as before, and the goddess met him with a smile. Now he did not look confused. The guest stated that he was determined to be determined. Having said this, he laughed loudly, which surprised and even embarrassed the gods. At the same time, many brave adventure seekers suddenly lost their ability to use magic. Suddenly, Lara broke into the room, shouting loudly. She rushed to the bed where he slept. The cult stated that it seems unreasonable even for Lara, but she immediately snapped. It's been a few days from the moment of the mission, and the dragon has not yet come to mind. Despite the fact that the experienced veterinarian found nothing serious, Ku still looked worried. Bozan suggested that he was through monsters from the maze. That day they really managed to get out of the dungeon. Everyone was alert, waiting for the attack. But what happened next was surprised by them. At that moment, Lara came to the aid of people. Thanks to her participation and intervention by an adventurer named Ashid, who was accidentally near, the loss was minimized. It seemed to Ravel that Q could pick up a curse or illness, but Q himself suggested going to the mission with everyone and did not want to stay in the cave. Friends still did not know how to do Kaya when suddenly the administrator Alina came into the room. She was noticeably concerned. When Ravel asked what happened, she replied that she had received an urgent task that could beguile as many people. Near the kingdom, the theory of Raro was in the monster ring. They need to be overcome to free the city and clear this land. Ira and Lara immediately showed interest in a risky mission, although they were well aware of what a danger was. Ajito and Lizzie also did not stand aside. Ajito very much wanted to dive into the very center of events and find out who was behind the attack on the city. Lizzie asked Ajito if he was ready to risk and again participate in dangerous tasks. The guy shook his head confidently. He really wanted to get the horns of Minotaur and increase his level. In the depths of his heart, he was still offended by Ravella, and very much wanted to prove that he could handle any task on his own, without any help. He convinced Lizzie not to be so serious, because there is no mission for raising the rank. The entrance to the maze is closed, so everyone is already looking for new classes. Among the wishing will be a sage, because he dreams of joining the prestigious academy to be closer to the girl he loves. At this time, Anna tirelessly studied at the academy, every day, making every effort to become the strongest and most successful among all students. Teachers saw her a lot of talent in it. She was already able to protect her friends and overcome the monk. Now she was waiting for the most important battle in the city, where the dragon may appear. The captain of Jesk came to her, smiling, as always. He asked her to turn to him right without any titles. He asked Anna if he considers herself a real veteran, because she first needs to leave the academy to fulfill the mission. Anna honestly admitted that she was a little worried. Although the girl was worried, she remained confident because there was a road to her who supported her. Therefore, she did not intend to retreat. Jesk was happy to see her good mood, because he understood. When a girl was in love, she can do anything. But he did not have time to rejoice in how he was urgently summoned to a meeting he had completely forgotten. At this time, Colton and Ravel talked about the unusual rules of the task. After its completion, they will need to meet with a friend. This caused them surprise, and they could not understand why such a requirement. The cult considered this high-profile aristocrat a muzzle, but still noticed in him some incomprehensible attractiveness that made him pay attention. Sometimes Colt imagined himself the same as he, but understood that he was destined a completely different life. Ravel noticed these shadows in his eyes, but did not want to break this conversation. And the sage at this time calmly noted that all conversations were a futile business. Now the most important thing is to destroy monsters and take care of the safety of your hometown. Raro is a border city, quite large and lively. However, for the first time, it was such a great war. The enemy was already near the walls, and the locals, for the first time, felt a real danger. Ajito and Ira were surprised. There were even more monsters here than on the 19th floor of the maze. The girl barely restrained the fear, but still did not retreat. She firmly decided not to retreat because her friends now risk her life. It was not the moment to remember your fears or past. We must act together. Everyone was surprised by the courage of the little Ira, but for her it became a common matter. She was not the first time she showed her power in battles. The head of the Guild Federation, Levis, first came to the city. His appearance stirred the locals because they never met him before. Once upon a time, this town was a quiet resort where the royal family was going to rest in the honeymoon. However, during the war, it became a strategically important military base. The city affected by the attack of monsters urgently needed help. Levis urged everyone right now and promised a generous award for it. He promised to demonstrate all his strength and skills that are not inferior to the skills of the best soldiers, and it was this day that had to be his test for bravery. His speech inspired not only adventure seekers, but also all residents of the city who decided to stand up for glory, peace, and a better future. The first to be blocked the path of angry manticores. One brave fighter rushed forward, hoping to stop the monster on his own and become a hero. Ravel praised the courage of the boy but warned him. Excessive courage can sometimes lead to trouble. He immediately rushed to the rescue. His famous stroke did not leave the monsters with the slightest chance, and that struck everyone who saw this scene. Anna learned that someone won the whole pack of a mantic. Listening to the story, she immediately guessed. It could only be a Rave, her best friend. Without holding back feelings, the girl rushed to Captain Joni, trying to find out where he was. She had to find him. Anna quickly jumped on the back of the dragon and flew directly into the whirlwind. The captain looked after her with a smile, praising her courage and confidence. Seeing, as Anna boldly entered the battle, other students of the academies also decided to support her and quickly joined the fight. Captain Jesk watched this with a prominent joy. He liked when the events began brightly and exciting. Together with other adventurers, Ravel bravely joined all the monsters without missing any opponent. The best students of the elite academy, who rushed to enemies, also joined the detachment. It happened exactly what their souls dreamed of. Ravel and Anna, supporting each other, found strength even in the face of danger. Nearby, in the shade, there was a dark figure watching everything that was happening. She decided it was time to start a new magical war. After the defeat, which she suffered 1,000 years ago, this time she was determined to win. This terrible enemy had decisive intentions. He wanted to take revenge for all years of humiliation and the fact that the world forgot about him. It was surprising that the Dark Owner knows Ravel well and is already thinking about getting rid of the carrier of the talent of Diligence. The battle approached its climax. Ravel stood next to Anna, struggling with great courage. Ira and Colt were also lagging behind, making every effort to hold back the danger. Suddenly, everyone seemed to have frozen. A Hydra S rang, a giant monster appeared before them, which caused fear only with their appearance. Ira immediately warned Ajito carefully. Hydra attacks were so cruel that even the most fondly warriors died without withstanding the power of her magic. It was at this point that the cult of the cult intervened in the battle, releasing a powerful stream of fire magic. The flames swept the battlefield, burning monsters and destroying their protective barriers. Remaining calm and confident, he asked to finish the fight as soon as possible and pay attention to wounded friends. Suddenly, a figure without a head emerged from the fog, which slowly headed to the cult, reminding him of that cheerful aristocrat. Cold boils from anger. To retreat now that they need to save the city, he did not intend, even if he had to meet death. Monsters flying in the sky were also added to terrestrial creatures. Ravel realized that he would not be able to get an enemy who is high in the air. At this time, Anna suddenly appeared on the back of her hand dragon and rapidly rushed to the hole in the sky. Ravel looked at it proudly. At that moment, he felt an unusual flow of magic, and realized that by this invasion, there was someone who controls everything directly from the earth. Ravel used auxiliary magic, gained speed, and went to look for a place where the invasion began to influence the course of the battle. Coming on the roof of a tall building, he noticed the silhouette that he silently emitted dark power. It was this figure that initiated the attack, but the enemy did not think to give up. He said that this attack was just a reminder of the former war with monsters. His wards had already sown chaos, and it was impossible to stop them. Without hesitation, Ravel immediately rushed into battle, but his sword suddenly rested on the invisible wall. He swung hard, but in response he heard only a dry crack from a blow. A powerful backstroke threw Ravel tens of meters back. Black energy only increased, but the guy was not going to give up. Even without weapons, he grabbed a fragment of the sword and threw it directly from the enemy, hoping to change the course of the battle. The Dark Owner stopped him with one wave of his hand and immediately subjugated his Ravella. He said that the guy had an incredible gift, and it was time to find out the truth about the Great War of the Monks. Without waiting for the answer, Ravel suddenly felt knowledge of the war. The gods gave people special abilities so that they could fight the monsters. The insidious organizer of the attack was pleased to watch everything that happened, trying to find out what Ravel was actually capable of. Then he decided to tell the old story, although it was not safe for such conversations around. People need only one thing: the world is about to die. It's time to let go of your dreams and accept inevitably. The dark monster set a spell that strengthened all the monsters around. He sent them some of their power to act together by order. Immediately afterwards, his magic strengthened the army of monsters, and the invasion became even more dangerous than before. Suddenly, all adventurers have been enveloped by dark magic. Their talents disappeared, and now they have become defenseless in the face of death. The flow of anti-magia became increasingly powerful. The monsters began to act decisively. The Dark Owner has finally revealed all the power he has collected for millennia. He informed Ravel with a mockery that talents were actually a curse. At that moment, Anna did not hold her dragon, and he began to rush into the air madly. She kept trying not to panic, but suddenly the forces left Anna and shot her from the saddle, after which she flew down from the height of many meters. But at the last moment, he saved the girl from a dangerous fall. Anna, with relief, hugged her rescuer firmly. She wondered how he was able to escape, but Q only silently shook his head. Now not time to explain. Instead of answering, he rushed into battle. However, he did not have time to do anything. They suddenly flew an even greater and more fierce giant flying monster than those that happened before. This time, Anna acted incredibly quickly. She immediately flew to the enemy, struck a powerful blow to the sword, and immediately jumped back on the back of Q. The dragon praised her for his wit and suggested that he searched Ravel together without spending time. Q suddenly mentioned many new details. His memory has changed. Now he needed to hurry up and pass the important thing to the owner until the city was completely destroyed. Among the adventurers began panic. Left without talents, they felt defenseless before the onset of monster. However, the cult quickly realized that ancient magic was still working. This means that the power of a dark enemy affects only modern talents. He remained attentive and did not allow himself to relax. Even in a difficult situation, he was ready to defend and respond to the enemy. Meanwhile, Ajito and Ira tried to hide from another monster. Ira honestly confessed, without talent, her guns are completely useless. Ajito felt a rage and powerlessness in it, because he had no idea how to get out of the trap. Meanwhile, Q circled in the air above the city, looking for his master. Finally, he noticed a Ravella, closed in black witchcraft. The dragon rushed down and released a hot flame from his mouth. Anna also did not delay. She boldly rushed with his sword against the Dark Ruler. But her attack was in vain. The enemy was not even injured. It became clear to everyone. It will be very difficult to overcome it. The Dark Leader mocked Ravel, forcing him to feel his own powerlessness. Q did not silence. He instantly swallowed the Dark Ruler, and thus released the owner from the magic shackles. He said that it is always necessary to be persistent, because efforts are sure to bring the result. Even when everything seems in vain, he is not going to stop. He has an important goal: to return what is very valuable for him. It turned out that the dragon wanted to share with Ravel memories from his past so that the guy can understand how to move on. Suddenly, the Dark Lord appeared again. He loudly stated that he had been waiting for this moment for many years, and now no one will be able to prevent him from plans. The proudness of the enemy was so angry with Ravel that he, without holding anger, struck with all his enemy. The blow was so powerful that the monster flew to the side and crashed into the wall. This is how ancient magic, which cannot be destroyed, was manifested. The sage did not stop. He was constantly attacked, while the dark beast tried to tread the darkness of what was happening. In peacetime, his friends somehow advised, "Be responsible in everything because each decision has its consequences." The world was no longer the same as before, and their main mission was already fulfilled. It's time to look for a new goal for yourself. Now their task was to follow the worlds and look for those that were most suitable for life. But this world was not perfect. Here the strong ones were the weak, and such as he met a lot. However, people were a special place among all creatures. They were partly reminiscent of the gods who watched everything. But people's lives were much shorter, although it had huge potential. It seemed as if this mysterious species called people would disappear in a few hundred years. From the outside, they seemed to be in vain. All divine creatures knew well. To destroy the world is very simple. It is enough to break his heart, which is hidden deep inside, where the source of all living things is. It was in that place that souls came after death. There they remembered their lives and prepared to be born again. Even the gods could not intervene in this path. However, observers had the right to create new species, such creatures that could survive in all circumstances, and eventually became monsters. When the mission was fulfilled, Ravella's partner suggested returning back, because everything was over here. The world has been left over to monsters, and since then, a whole 1,000 years have passed. But when observers returned to the world of people again, they were surprised by what they saw. People not only survived, but built a whole civilization. All the forecasts were incorrect. Humanity has not disappeared, on the contrary. It blossomed, and it was amazing. The monsters, who, after each revival, became stronger, people began to use as a valuable resource for their survival. People learned how to use magic, a force that had to direct their souls to the nucleus. Now the same magic has become a salvation for them. Observers were surprised, because people had to have such knowledge. The wisdom of the world has always been considered the fate of only gods. Understanding the situation, they noticed that the wisdom in this world has become much more. Although the time to realize it, they were missing. Wisdom is the power of those who can observe and understand how the world works around, including all ecosystems. But now people were able to surpass it. Their achievements in magic, construction, and medicine have become simply incredible. Observers no longer understood how to cope with this strange event. Evolution lasted, and it could not be stopped. Therefore, Ravel decided to understand what was happening. Despite the only rule, not to interfere, the curiosity outlined him, and he came to the city, giving him an ordinary person. Although the world existed in the world, it seemed developed and ordered. Ravel was amazed at how people managed to develop despite all the difficulties. The little surprise was caused by a little girl who carelessly played a monster. It seemed incredible because everyone was convinced that monsters exist only to destroy and kill. Ravel, learning to speak as a man, asked in surprise how a girl could be a girlfriend of such a creature. In response, she only apologized and asked not to hurt her pet. She said that the monster sometimes interferes and can even harm, but it is only part of the game. They eat, communicate together, and have fun. The girl tightly wrapped his friend and promised to do everything possible to make her a real part of her family. Ravella greatly impressed the words of a little girl. This meeting with a fun child has become a real change in his life. He remembered how she used to treat him with a jam, and enthusiastically explained how it should be eaten. The girl rejoiced at every moment with him. Every day she came up with interesting stories and told them a dragon and her unusual guest. In this world, there was a creature that created everything around. She invented how to give birth to new worlds, and since then there are many possible realities. Hundreds of trillions of different options. Subsequently, these worlds began to disappear gradually. Even the immortal deity felt the void inside, because everything that it did, no more meaning. The goddess wanted at least one of the worlds to remain calm and harmonious, but she could not monitor everyone at the same time, so she decided to create the warders who fulfilled this important mission. They had the task of looking for planets that are suitable for life. However, if they made a mistake, there was no second chance. All their actions were carefully recorded to report to God. In the end, the goddess heard about an incredible world in which people were constantly moving forward. She realized that this world really deserves a high goal, but even now the caretakers could not understand how that happened. After all, they used to settle this world with magical creatures. It turns out that they made a mistake at the beginning. If this is true, their lives lost meaning and endangered. However, this time their decision could be false. Even magical creatures eventually became part of the natural circle of life. If there are no signs of destruction, the goddess has reason to enjoy the new revival. But even this did not change the main. The sage, along with the partner, made the wrong decision. Now it remains unclear whether they would continue to remain observers of this world. His partner calmly reminded that the observer could not be wrong. There should be no evidence. After these words, he disappeared, leaving Ravel himself at the crossroads. Soon the insurance of incredible power was attacked. No hunter was able to stop him. The detachments were broken one by one. Suddenly, a young man named Ravel appeared. He has overlooked the monster by one powerful blow, like lightning, torn the silence around. But this victory was violated by the most important rule. Observers are forbidden to intervene. Because of this, he himself became part of this world. He was no longer a creature with the divine forces. Magic still remained in it, but the immortality disappeared. The new body meant a completely different life for him, with all his pain, anxiety, and death. But when the girl thanked him truly, from the very heart, he realized that the whole way was not in vain. At that moment, sincere gratitude appeared in the eyes of her father. And here, Ravel realized that it was time to accept his fate and stop hiding from her. He got a new goal: to become a defender of this world. A new story began soon, which everyone called the Magical War. Anna brought the news. She felt a powerful spike in magic. Although the fighting was not to her liking, it was Anna who was able to carry out exploration from the air. Her devoted dragon Q had a fun circling nearby, as if she had felt an inseparable connection with her, which could only be arisen through deep fate. Suddenly, Ravel gently put her hand on her head, and the girl felt something incredible. He called it a memory explosion. He wished her to fly with the dragon in his next life, because then she would receive the gift of being the dragon's rider. Anna rejoiced, her face radiated happiness. Ravel listened to her laughter carefully and remembered how it was before. The observers just looked away, and he constantly tried to find content in his life. So once asked the girl, "Why does she live?" She only slightly shrugged and answered, "I never thought about it, just living as it is." Hearing this simple answer, Ravel could not stay and laughed. Then he decided that it was time to finally put an end to this terrible war. He knew well who started it, but every time he tried to stop it, he was dangerous. Still, he managed to get to the goal. His rival, though defeated, smiled through the pain and said, "You will change nothing." Ravel tried to understand where the magic of the goddess went, because it was enough to create monsters. He suspected his partner conceived something else. People become better thanks to their mistakes. They should be defeated to become stronger. He said that even 1,000 years later, people will again pray to the gods for help, and the war will break with new power. Ravel was angry with his fists, but it did not change anything. Observers have already made mistakes. The partner just smiled and said, "You have no abilities. You are only an observer and I have to decide." Having collected all his strength, he pushed a powerful magical blow to the girl. She didn't have time to defend herself. Ravella seized fear. He hurried to her, but life rapidly left her young body. He caresses himself for his uncertainty. However, even at this important moment, he believes that he should find at least some way forward. The girl, barely holding on, remembered all her words that she spoke to him over the years. In her eyes, what remained unspoken was red. She shakes her voice. Finally, she told him that he was the most beautiful man in the whole world. After these words, it became a little easier, and she slowly closed her eyes. The painful, promised to defend this world until the last breath. Even if he has to start again, he wants her to be next to him. Ravel did not imagine what happened after death. Maybe everything just disappears. But he decided, if so, you will have an important mission. After the Great Magical War, people received a special gift from above, unique talents. When everyone was 12 years old, he found a special ability that no one else was possessed. Years passed. People gradually forgot about the war, and the world was filled with peace. The children laughed again and rejoiced in life. But there was one boy who remained serious. The boy avoided games and did not seek to make friends. All his admiration was in knowledge. However, other children still tried to communicate with him, especially one girl. She just came to the city, friendly, with a warm smile. Little Swelf immediately told her, "Don't get close, I am a monster." But she just smiled and replied, "Now we are friends." So Ravel saw his Anna again. Now they fought together in a hot battle, opposed to an enemy who already knew that Ravel had given Dragon all his strength, memories, and knowledge. Many years have passed. Kui now protects Ravel. During this time, people improved their abilities, reduced temples, built majestic cities, and created whole empires. But would they have the strength to live if they had no ability? All the centuries would have gone. Society has become an unfair place where the weaknesses were despised. Many centuries have passed, and one day a few exiles from the royal capital came across a forgotten laboratory. It was there that a new story had to unfold. Ku lived without mentioning the most important. But when the moment of danger came, the past returned to him. He remembered that he had to return what he had protected for hundreds of years. The world stood again on the threshold of death. The dark monster made the end of everything. The abilities of people have gone away. They lost their strength. But only Savell continued to fight. Only one person had the ability to restore power. Even without much abilities, he believed that magical monsters could be defeated. They were not immortal. Snail rushed into the attack. His blow was powerful, so he wanted to prove the monster that he was wrong. The enemy was badly mistaken because he did not understand people at all. He considered them powerless. But now Levis was thinking about the ruins of his academy. Captain Isaac did not lower his hands, unlike Levis. He collected his comrades and continued to stand with them. Levis acknowledged that he had no idea before that there would be a moment when the powerful knight's dragons would be defeated. But now, even the devoted soldiers of the king have lost their desire to fight. Isaac grabbed his hand firmly and said sternly, "You will say it again, and you will betray yourself. The leader cannot afford to lose hope." He remembered Levis their past accomplishments. As the monsters won together, the mysterious Mage was overcome. Warriors are always worth respect because they protect people. Levis asked if these words became the first praise for him throughout their friendship, but these words returned him hope. Levis again became a source of inspiration for all. He showed that even without much abilities, while you stand firmly on your feet, you need to fight to the end. In the city at this time, the crazy Hydra, the brave adventurers were able to lure it in a trap. That's about to come a crucial moment. Strong explosions destroyed the buildings around, harming the monster. Seeing this, Ezito decided to take advantage of the moment and went on the attack. As he headed the team, he ordered the destruction of the Hydra, because the next opportunity may no longer happen. Everyone realized there was a crucial moment. Everyone gathered all his power and continued to fight until the last, hoping that they would be saved. Hydra freed her magical shell and got out of the trap. She began to destroy everything around. Most people escaped, but Ezito remained to save the era. Then he realized that he may have lost the tournament for this reason. Meanwhile, the head of the monster destroyed the protection of people. The warriors did not fought bravely to win another street. The knights came together in the duel, weaved the swords in iron blows, and adventure seekers used the remnants of magic that were still at their disposal. Each of them dreamed of changing the course of events. In this battle, the cult of the wise men discovered ancient magical secrets and shared them with others. He could understand everyone without a word, only feeling their mood and condition. He used to use fiery magic to destroy traps in the dungeons. It was its strongest side. But even then, he did not stop and continued to look for new ways to develop his abilities. Traveling alone in the world of mysterious magic, the cult never thought to share his power with others. He always dreamed of mastering the art of ultimatic magic for himself. The talent of the magic doll enabled him to turn any spell into a source of energy. Therefore, he thought, the moment came to support everyone who stands with him side by side in this struggle. Indeed, each of the adventure seekers got a special power. Some could control the fire, others to cause an icy wind or to rage a storm. Now they were able to unite their abilities to overcome the evil that hang over the world. The cult had one clear goal: to gain the glory of the savior of mankind, that everyone may remember it. But the headless enemy was not going to retreat. He struck his hand sharply and immediately crushed the stone bridge leading to the rest of the city. Heavy stones suddenly flew from the sky, and the detachment had to retreat. It was here that the cult used this moment to strike. Suddenly, Lar appeared. It was the one who knew everyone. She rushed to help the wounded, and it was amazed by the cult because he could not understand why she was here. Lar looked at him to find out how injured he was, and whether at least some magical power remained in it. However, the cult told her sharply. The girl was not lost. She pulled out the elixir and confidently ordered him to drink. The force of the potion disappeared as soon as it left the inventory. For the cult, it became a real shock. A woman who has always hated magic suddenly mastered the art of using a magical repository. She confessed that it was not easy, But it was Ravel who helped her believe in herself. Her strength disappeared gradually, but the heart rejoiced, watching the cult returns its power. At the same time, the Dark Lord of the Monsters realized that the idea of destroying humanity was collapsing. His monsters were pushed back. Ravel advised his opponent to think, "People are not as defenseless as it seems. Even after defeat in the war, they find the strength to learn something new. People can notice their mistakes and learn from them. This is how they become stronger. This is the true development of consciousness." Ravel decided to prove to everyone that each person is special. He believed that the greatest power lies in the determination of each of us. When people unite, they can overcome any difficulties. That is why those who can only destroy do not like them. Whenever Ravel struck, he spoke about how much humanity loves. The Dark confessed he had no chance of victory because only a pinch of force from the observer remained. And Ravel is no longer an observer. His immortal body disappeared. As soon as it appears again, it will no longer be able to fight. At such times, the world returns to the laws when the main thing is talent, and everyone suddenly notice how defenseless they are. But Ravel could not put up with it. If the observer interferes with someone's life, he already ceases to be a side and becomes part of it. He conveyed his power to Ku and thus became a common man himself. His strength appeared again in the body of the cult. He gradually began to mention what he was able to do and what he could. But he did not enjoy this force for his own benefit. Even if he ever have to turn out of his way, he will never destroy this world. He now belongs to him. Hearing these words, the old friend thought, "They are used to fighting the latter, but now it has become noticeable that everything is different." While the adventurers and knights were fighting under the command of the cult, Ravel unexpectedly felt familiar feelings. Before him, the goddess appeared again. She smiled gently, and the guy suddenly remembered all the most important moments of his past life. Ravel realized that his ability had nothing to do with the cult. This is a real gift from the goddess. She nodded as a sign of consent and then told the whole truth. It was she who made Lar able to find it, and it was she who conveyed the observer's power. She also instructed the cult to help Ravel. So they will meet again, but in another form. When Anna was on the verge of life and death, only the reincarnation could be a salvation. Or it could do a sage. And Kue had to return his strength. At that moment, the goddess said, "Ravel was able to overcome the Manticora alone, and this is not for everyone." After that, Ravel asked permission to ask another, the last question. Why is the Ravel who violated the basic rules of observers and now is forced to return to life endlessly? Did he still gain the power of the most powerful magic? The moment came to leave behind his former I. Now he had to go boldly forward, despite back. The goddess noted that the observer should be perfect. However, among them appeared special. It was he who changed everything. This observer skillfully intertwined humor, drama, and hope. And because of this, the rest did not take him seriously. Some did not even take it so much that he sought to erase any trace of his existence. But everyone had to realize, this world they were watching appeared precisely because of their imperfection. This is what made it unique and unique. Over time, people changed so much that even the gods themselves began to watch them with interest, seeing in the human world a place for entertainment, research, and curiosity. Finally, Ravel's strength has completely recovered. Now he had to make a choice, staying here or returning to the role of the observer. Old Savel explained that his strength no longer needed this world, and in the new world he finally gained real friends. However, he is forced to sacrifice all his power. The restored Savel was convinced that he would reach great power, even if he did not have special abilities. He believed that perseverance would help him become strong. He has already gained the most important knowledge of the memory of old Ravel, and sincerely thanked him for it. It is thanks to the magic part of the Dragon Q that managed to preserve these memories and move them through space and time. The goddess laughed, because it is this fragment that gives the demon a chance to return and fulfill its purpose, to destroy humanity. Ravel thanked for his memories and strength, but also warned that the most dangerous place is the central core. Only the elected managed to get there. Although it was not easy, he did not retreat, and was going to bring the mission to the end. People always work hard, and do not give up. And the other Savel again followed everything that was happening. The goddess handed them another couple, and returned the soul of the one who died around the nucleus. This observer, who was considered imperfect, was able to start everything from the beginning. 2 years have passed, as Lar suddenly discovered that providing the army could be faster. But a letter from the sage was a real surprise for her. Everyone kept their breath and was curious about how she opened a letter and read news about a brave hero from the academy. But Lar remained a merchant and did not want to betray her choice. Even in this role, she could influence the fate of the heroes, and now she had to negotiate with the kings themselves. Eiji Ito, together with others, was surprised to view the Academy of Elite Heroes. The building was impressed with its size and beauty. Even those who did not have outstanding talents could feel a special magical atmosphere. Even when people lost their abilities, they still dreamed of getting there. Eiji Ito supported them, saying that one should not doubt themselves. After all, even those who did not have talents were taught here the main thing: a sincere desire to become better. The most important thing is teamwork. When we are together, we can achieve much more than any hero of the past. When Ito wounded, who was the previous hero, it turned out that his name was wiped out of memory. The cult recommended not to pay attention to the past. Meanwhile, cheerful Anna helped beginners to master driving. She always said that talent is not the most important thing. It is more important to have a sincere desire to learn and make efforts. The main thing is to believe in your own strength. Even the dragons are afraid of people, so you need to approach them carefully and openly to get a true friendship in the world of animals. Captain Isaac, who became the teacher, reminded that there were no knights of the Red Dragon. Now only Anna is able to become a decisive force in the fight against the Empire hiding behind the sea. There will always be people who want more in this country. Isaac thought about Anna's words and realized that she was right. Suddenly, Ravel appeared. Smiling, he went to the girl with his faithful beast and calmly greeted as if nothing had happened. He recalled their promises. 3 years ago they confessed to each other in their feelings and promised to meet again. Anna still remembered all his words. She rushed into his arms, and her heart felt hope again. Now they can really achieve the most important and stay together.